All right, thank you very much, Madam Clerk. Welcome everyone to the special council meeting this evening. This is Wednesday, October the 29th, 2025. Council is scheduled for 5:30, and so we're going to proceed with our special council meeting. It's primarily a planning public meeting, but we're also going to have a bit of a workshop session later part of this meeting to gather input from the public. And so all of council is here with the exception of Councillor Broderick, who sends his regrets, but we do have a quorum, so we're going to move forward. Madam Clerk, the agenda for tonight. Item number 1, recommendation be it resolved that the Council of the Township of Clearview hereby approve the agenda dated October 29, 2025 as presented. A mover and seconder, please. Mr. Walker, Mr. MacArthur, thank you. Any questions on the agenda? Seeing none, I will call the motion. All in favor? And the agenda carries. Thank you. Is there a declaration of pecuniary interest or anything of that nature? No one has a declaration at this time. If anything comes up during the meeting, don't be shy. Make sure you share it with us. We'll make sure we'll deal with it right away. Council, we're going to move into our public meeting portion of the agenda. We have one item specifically in the public meeting portion. And as I said, later on in our agenda, we're going to get to item number 4, which is our zoning bylaw review. So for our public meetings that we generally hold here, our deputy mayor is the chair. So Madam Clerk, I will pass the chair to the deputy mayor for the chair of those meetings.
Thank you, Your Worship. As is tradition, we will now initiate the public meeting portion of tonight's agenda. We invite you to comment on the application being presented tonight and to engage in the process with us. If you wish to be notified of the decision of the Corporation of the Township of Clearview on an application being discussed this evening, please complete a public delegation form and submit the form to the deputy clerk. So I believe they're sitting over there. If anybody wants one, please fill one in and leave it with our clerk when the meeting is over. The views expressed in the public comments are solely those of the individuals providing them and do not reflect the opinions of the township, its agents, or its employees. It is not possible for the township to verify the accuracy of all information provided by the members of the public. The township therefore assumes no responsibility for any inaccurate information that may be contained within the public comments. If you have information that might correct, clarify, or refute any statements contained within the public comments, please forward it to the Township Planning Department. Be advised that your comments or requests to be notified will form part of the public record. Your communication and any personal information therein will be made available to the public unless you expressly request its removal. If a person or a public body would otherwise have an ability to appeal the decision of the Township of Clearview to the Ontario Land Tribunal, but the person or public body does not make oral submissions at a public meeting or make written submissions before the proposed official plan or zoning bylaw amendment is adopted or passed, the person or public body is not entitled to appeal the decision. If a person or a public body does not make oral submission at a public meeting or make written submissions to the Township of Clearview before the proposed official plan or zoning bylaw amendment is adopted or passed, the person or public body may not be added as a party to the hearing of an appeal before the Ontario Land Tribunal, unless, in the opinion of the tribunal, there are reasonable grounds to add the person or public body as a party. The following public meeting will involve a brief presentation by our planning staff, an opportunity for the applicant or their agent to present their application, and a period for public comments or questions, and an opportunity for questions by the Planning Committee. We will now begin with the public meeting, which will respect to item 3.1, zoning bylaw amendment for file 2025-052. The applicant is Red Rup, consisting of 1943, 2015, and 2057 Fairgrounds Road South, and a property with no civic address. The planning staff will now start a brief presentation concerning the application.
Thank you, Chair. Through the Chair, Your Worship, members of Council, and members of the public, my name is Nick Ainley, and I'm a community planner here at the Township of Clearview, and I'm here to assist in facilitating the public meeting for site-specific zoning bylaw amendment 2025-052. And just a little introduction, I'm going to provide a kind of a brief high-level presentation, which will be followed by a little bit more detailed presentation by the applicant's planning consultant. Next slide, please. Here's my contact information, so if anyone has any comments they'd like to submit or any questions, they can provide that information to that contact information. Next slide, please. So as indicated by the chair, the subject lands are municipally addressed as 1943, 2015, 2057 Fairgrounds Road South, as well as a property with no civil address. That's the landlocked parcel on the north east corner. Although municipally addressed, individually municipally addressed, it's understood by the applicant's consultant, they've advised that the properties have actually inadvertently merged on title. So therefore, while again addressed individually, they are identified as a single property at this time. Next slide. In terms of purpose and effect, the proposed zoning bylaw amendment application seeks to rezone a portion of subject lands from agricultural to an agricultural exception zone. The purpose of the amendment is to permit a reduction in the required minimum distance separation calculation setback distance from 130 meters to 10 meters for one of the 3 existing barns located on the subject lands, as well as to recognize and permit 2 existing single detached dwellings on the lands to be retained. The effect of the application is to facilitate the severance of a surplus dwelling lot from the subject lands as a result of a farm consolidation. Next slide, please. In terms of submission items, as part of a complete application, the following materials were submitted by the applicant's planning consultant: planning justification report, a draft zoning bylaw, MDS, minimum distance separation 1 calculations using the online AgriSeat formulas, 2 consent sketches, as well as an updated memorandum to the township dated September 23, 2015. This information can be viewed online by clicking the link. Next slide, please. In terms of current land uses on the subject lands as well as surrounding lands, so the subject lands themselves are currently used for agricultural land uses. So this includes cash crop as well as livestock uses. As the subject lands have inadvertently merged on title, the subject lands do currently support 3 existing single detached dwellings as well as 3 existing barn structures. In terms of surrounding lands, it's a bit challenging to see from this photo, but the subject lands to the north, west, and south are again in agricultural land uses, with the lands immediately to the east supporting the Mad River Golf Course. Next slide, please. In terms of planning policy, the subject lands are primarily designated as agricultural within the township's official plan document. That's in the tan color. And they also do support areas of the Greenlands Natural or Hazard Lands designation, which are the blue streaks on the property. The subject lands are zoned agricultural and are also zoned environmental protection on the east or kind of rear portion of the subject lands, which is more of a forested area on the property. The subject lands are also partially regulated by the Nottawasaga Valley Conservation Authority. Next slide, please. As indicated earlier, the proposed rezoning is required in support of a proposed farm consolidation. This is a bit tricky to see from this scale. I believe the applicant in their presentation have a bit more zoomed in. But if you can see on kind of the northwest corner of the subject lands, the applicant seeking to sever an approximately 0.76 hectare parcel of land from the overall land holdings. With the request for minimum distance separation and reduction in the setback distance being from a proposed barn located in close proximity. Next slide, please. For notice and circulation, so it was given in accordance with the Planning Act. This was done on October 1st, 2025. This was done posting of notification signage on the property as well as on the township's website. Details of the application supporting materials have been made available to the public and have also been circulated to relevant commenting agencies for review and comment. Next slide, please. So basically all comments, public or agency, that have been received prior to the publishing of the public meeting agenda, which I believe was October 22nd, have been included on the agenda in the agenda package material. Any comments received tonight or subsequent to will form part of the recommendation report. Next slide. So it's kind of the final slide here in terms of the overall review process. The original application was received on July 10th. It was deemed complete on July 22nd. Notice of public meeting was given on October 1st, and tonight is the public meeting on October 29th. Staff are tentatively aiming for October 24th to have a recommendation report back to council for consideration, with any bylaw from that meeting being brought back to the December 8th meeting. So that concludes my presentation, and I believe it'll go now to the applicant's consultant.
Thanks very much, Nick. I believe we have Christine Loft online with us, so we'll bring her into the picture. We can see her.
Thank you. Good evening. Can you hear me?
You're a little muffled, but we can hear you.
Okay, I'll turn up my volume a little. Good evening. I do have a PowerPoint presentation. If, with your indulgence, I will present it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Christine Loft with Loft Planning, and I'm representing the landowner, William Redrup, regarding zoning bylaw amendment file 2025-052. The subject lands are municipally known as 1943, 2015, and 2057 Fairgrounds Road South. The site is located on the east side of Fairgrounds Road South between 1819 Side Road and 1516 Side Road. The lands have a total lot area of 108 hectares and a lot frontage of 900 meters. The lands are primarily agricultural with small portions of woodlands at the rear, and the lands are a resultant merger and therefore include 3 farm clusters, including 3 residences, as well as agricultural buildings. The lands are used for a calf operation, as well as including cash crop lands. The surrounding lands are agricultural, and the Mad River Golf Course is located to the east and adjacent to the rear lots of the entirety of the property. The application before you tonight is a zoning bylaw amendment to implement a consent to create a surplus dwelling lot on the subject lands by amending section 2.23 to reduce the required MDS 1 requirement where 130 meters is required and 10 meters is provided. It will also recognize and permit 2 existing dwellings on the retained lot. The current zoning is agriculture AG and environmental EP, and the proposed zoning would include agricultural site specific, and the EP lands will remain unchanged. So I just have a few photos. This is a photo looking into the severed lands and the laneway of the severed lands. A photo of the barn in question and the MDS reduction that we are requesting. This is photos of the south side of the barn. And on the right-hand side is a photo of the surplus dwelling home, as well as a number of trees that are located on the severed property. And those trees are proposed to remain with the severed lands. With regard to the official plan, the lands are designated agriculture and greenland hazard lands within the Township of Clearview official plan and are zoned agriculture AG and environmental EP within the current zoning bylaw. The lands are zoned AG, which does contemplate surplus farm dwellings. Both the severed and the retained lands will comply with the AG zone. Noting for the severed lot, the lands meet the minimum lot area and minimum lot frontage. The required minimum lot area is 0.3 hectares and 0.7 hectares is provided for. And the minimum lot frontage is 30 meters and 52 meters is provided for. The retained lands will have a lot area of just over 107 hectares and a lot frontage of 848 meters. With regard to MDS has been provided within the planning report. The proposed amendment would reduce the MDS1 setback arc, the MDS1 arc between the existing livestock barn and the proposed severed lot. The barn is in good structural order. The required MDS arc would be 130 meters from the barn to the proposed rear lot line of the severed property, and this actual distance is approximately 10 meters. I would note that the severed lands include the trees that are between the residence and the barn, providing a buffer and ensuring that the owner of the dwelling has control over these trees. I would also note that council does have the ability to reduce MDS via a minor variance or a zoning bylaw amendment by way of guideline 43 of the MDS guidelines. And guideline 43 allows a municipality to reduce an MDS arc by way of a site-specific approval. The amendment is site-specific to the property, which consists of 1943, 2015, and 2057 Fairgrounds Road South. The main farm is considered 2015 Fairgrounds Road South. Mr. Redrup operates a cow-calf operation, and Beatty Brothers leases the agricultural lands for cash crop. Livestock are primarily located within the lower lands in the eastern portion of the property. The request for the reduction is on the basis of a number of items, which we have provided in the planning report and on this slide. So the barn is not a critical livestock facility to the overall farming operation. The barn is akin to a loafing barn. There are no water facilities located at the barn. Water is located in the lower back fields and at 2015 Fairgrounds Road barn. There is no manure storage located at this barn. The barn is fenced with a gate access for livestock, and livestock are typically only in this barn in times of inclement weather and historically when it has been extremely cold out. With regard to the merger, the overall lands consist again of the 1943, 2015, and 2057 Fairgrounds Road South. The lots have inadvertently merged on title. There are 3 residences on the parcel, and through pre-consultation, it has been determined that a bylaw to implement the severing of one of the dwellings as a surplus farm dwelling and the existing 2 other residences should be recognized within the bylaw, and they are recognized within the bylaw proposed before you tonight. The draft bylaw before you does permit the existing 2 dwellings, which of course are legal uses on 2015 and 2057. A planning justification report has been provided, and it provides a thorough review of all of the policies that are relevant. The Township of Clearview Official Plan, Section 11.9.8, permits surplus dwelling lots. There is no question that this dwelling located at 1943 Fairgrounds Road South is surplus to the farm operation, considering there are 3 dwellings on the lands and 1 operating a cow-calf operation, and the remainder of the lands leased to the Beatty Brothers for cash cropping. The lands do operate as one overall agricultural operation, and Section 11.9.8 provides criteria to be considered in review of a surplus dwelling lot. The proposed lot does conform to this criteria, specifically that the dwelling is over 15 years old. The dwelling on the surplus lot was the original, or would have been an original farm dwelling on the property. The dwelling is deemed surplus to the farm operation. The proposed lot is limited in size to accommodate the home and private services. The retained lot would have a lot area of 107 hectares. The new lot does not fragment the agricultural land base or hinder ongoing operations, and the overall ownership of the parcel is, of course, within the Township of Clearview. In conclusion, the application is consistent with Provincial Planning Statement 2024. It conforms to the County of Simcoe official plan and the Township of Clearview official plan, and the application complies with the Township of Clearview zoning bylaw as amended. And those are my comments, and I believe Mr. Redrup is in the office, in the council chambers, and is with Mr. Vandergust, who may wish to provide a few further comments as well.
Good. Thank you, Christine.
Thank you.
Mr. Vandergust, Mr. Redrup, would you like to speak? Please take the microphone. Just go to the microphone. So we're live streaming, we'll say, so the people can. Yeah, make sure, Vic, the button is pushed on, please.
Should get a green light. Thank you.
I mean, I throw a fastball or a curve?
Sorry, I didn't get that.
I'll be brief. The relevant issues have been addressed on by the planner. The cows watch the people golf at Vandiver Golf Club and stay in the back of the property. This barn, as you notice, the pictures went by fairly quickly, but the most relevant thing is it's a small barn. It's really no longer functional, given the size. His herd is not large, but they're Western cattle, cow-calf operation. I believe there might be a letter in the file from John Beatty that speaks to that in more detail. I'll leave that too. But the most relevant thing about the photographs, other than the trees that separate this, is that there's gates on the barn. The Red Rob tells me, cattle farming for a number of years, that putting the cattle on the barn, unless it's absolutely necessary, recognizing they're Western cattle and they're used to cold weather, is a good candidate to cause disease. It cost them a lot of money to ship the deceased one to Guelph. Find out exactly that it died of pneumonia and might have passed that to the rest of the cattle in the barn. So his intention, the common sense intention of anyone else who buys this farm, would be not to put these Western cattle in the barn, and that is the best use of the property other than the cash crops that the Beatties take. So I just wanted to point out to you that it is a gated, very limited use barn, which might not be the case if it were a cash, a feedlot operation where the cows are in the barn most of the day. They do what they do after they've eaten in the barn most of the day. It gets hauled out into huge manure piles. This barn is not going to be really offensive to anyone. There's a lot of encouragement these days, and just by way of interest, I had some success before the Ontario Land Tribunal for a farmer who had added one 8x12 little shed as a guest kind of resort thing to attend his farm, and the neighbor objected that he couldn't have 2 or 3. He now has 3, because being a farmer, other than you wouldn't believe it if you go to Loblaws to buy beef, farmers have had a tough time, and it is necessary for them to supplement their income and to kind of cut their losses in terms of expenses. So why should, if he's a beef farmer, he has 3 traditional large farms with houses, have to pay residential taxes on a farmhouse that he really doesn't need and can use the income to support the farming? So that's all I have to say. If you have any questions, Mr. Chair, Your Worship, or members of council, or Mr. Ainley.
We'll bring some questions later. I'll just give other
enough,
people from the public a chance to speak, but if we will include you if questions are directed towards you.
Push the button.
Just, that's fine. You can leave it on too. Mr. Redrup, did you want to speak at all, or just from Mr. Vandergust? That's good enough. Okay, that's fine. You can, okay, good.
Starting in 1958 and in 1976 and 1964, I accumulated these properties. Had many good farmers helping me along the way, both looking after crops and the cattle, including one old member of the council here, former Reeve of Nottawasaga, Mr. Swanson, maybe you remember him. But currently now, getting on years, unfortunately, I've had straight Hereford cattle for over 6 years. I'm a member of the Canadian Hereford Association, which is a tremendous organization. But I'm downsizing the cattle. I don't want to get rid of them. Time only will tell. And I'm making arrangements with the Beatty family, John Beatty and Andrew, to keep cattle on the pasture land for the future, so they won't grow back into wild trees and weeds. And currently the Beatty family, as of today, they just took off 100 acres of corn where they, from my land, on the cropland where they, in spite of a pretty bad year for corn growing as far as yields go, they got upwards of 200 bushels of corn to the acre. So but they've agreed to replace me when I no longer have the hair for cattle. Cattle have always, the roots come from old Alberta, the Latimer family in Rimoutou West, and they're considerably good livestock. Right now I have 20 cows as a basic herd, try to get up to 35 animals a year, including 15 calves if luck has it my way. Trouble with coyotes this year, bad year for the winter coyotes, but we're getting some. So the whole thing is we need to downsize, and as a result, reluctantly somehow, but we can't properly look after all the 250 acres we've got. So we're letting the unit that we're putting up for severance go, and we're going to keep the rest of the properties. They'll be kept in the family. We want to keep them in properties in good shape. They've done a lot of land carrying, a lot of farm management property as far as cattle rotation goes, and we want to keep that in good stand. And certainly with respect to the disposition of the severed properties, we'll be ever mindful of getting good people in there to take over the severed parcel and be ever mindful of our responsibilities to the township. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Okay. Does anybody in the audience wish to make a comment, ask a question, or address the committee with respect to this application? Anyone, any questions on the application? Going once? Any questions on the application? Going twice? 3 times? Okay. Nobody wishes to speak from the audience. I'll go to our council now. Do anybody have any questions for the application? Anyone who wish to speak towards it? Councillor MacArthur.
Yeah, I'm not sure who's going to answer it. Doesn't matter. It's a simple question. So how far is the barn exactly from the house? Like we're talking 10 meters from the proposed severed line. So how
Christine,
do we
you
have
wanna-
a distance?
Christine, you want to answer that, please?
Yes, thank you through the chair. The actual house is approximately 50 meters. So the MDS requires it to the lot line at 10, but the house to the barn is 50 meters.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Deneen.
Thank you. Through the deputy mayor to, I guess, the applicant. Is there power to this barn? Is there a power right of way to this barn? Is there hydro at the barn? And it goes down the driveway of the property, does it?
I'm sorry,
Is the hydro easement on the property that's to be severed?
the hydro for the house and the barn are on the property being severed, yes.
On
Right
the,
on the laneway going in.
okay. Are you planning, is there plans to continue the hydro to that barn?
We've discussed that. We can, right now, all the fencing for the farms, they're very well fenced, controlled by Gallagher Energizers. And we can easily reroute the need for power currently in the barn to the existing grid of power lines around the barn without any difficulty.
You
We
could-
don't need to have power
You-
in the barn.
You don't need to have power in the
No.
barn. Okay. That was just one question. And I just have the question for, I guess, through your worship, actually back to Nick. Isn't it just, you used the word inadvertently that they merged? It's automatic that any property in the same, like any property adjoining properties automatically merge when somebody purchases that property, though. Is that not correct?
Through the chair to the councillor. Yeah, the understanding that from the consultant that it was inadvertently merged, that it wasn't done on purpose, but maybe I'll direct that question to the applicant or their solicitor to address.
Mr.
If
Vandegas.
I may, is it working? The inadvertence is in the hand of the purchaser of the farm. I hate to date myself, but as my understanding of the law is prior to about 1969, there was all of a sudden people severing things like Bay Colony Estates and Wasaga Beach and subdivisions starting everywhere in the province around here put on minister's zoning orders. I think it dates to somewhere in the summer of 1969. Somewhere in the early 70s, it became the Planning Act. Right? The dates could be wrong, but it first started by way of a minister's zoning order that if you own side by each properties that are not whole lots on a registered plan, it's one of them is a partial lot. They are, in layman's terms, frozen. In legal terms, merged. So the inadvertence is that my client didn't know when he bought Farm A and Farm B and put them in the same name that the province was going to pass the Planning Act. And he didn't know that and recognize that when he bought Farm 3. And if they were all prior to the Planning Act and prior to the minister's zoning order, his lawyer of the day, who hopefully wasn't me, probably didn't know that either. So he's sort of stuck with it. It's probably undoable because they're traditional, I'm not going to say 100-acre farms, but they're traditional farms. And he could probably, and I chatted with him about that without saying off the record, why don't you sever at the middle farm and have the two ears independently? And he doesn't want to do that. He has them all and he uses them all and loves them all. But you're quite right that the merger is automatic. That wasn't his intention. That's a matter of law because the government changed the law.
Thank you.
You're okay? Thank you. Councillor Beelan?
Thank you. I'm just wondering, it doesn't show where the septic and the well are in relation to where the property line is, or did I miss something? I see where it says barn is 50 meters from the dwelling, but it really doesn't show how close to the property line the septic and well are.
Christine, did you want to answer, or Mr. Vandegas, did you want to answer that? Christine, can you answer that?
Thank you through the chair. The well and septic are within the severed lands.
Do you know how close to the property line they are?
I don't know that exactly. No, I don't know the setback.
Okay, so we'll need to get that information, Marty.
And I have
Yeah, through,
Okay, go ahead, Vic.
thank you. Through the chair, we would confirm that prior to the reference plan being completed.
Okay.
The well is immediately to the south of the house. It's a drilled well and it goes down about 140 feet. Drilled re-drilled about 5 years ago by Mighton Drilling. And it's about, well, it's certainly less than 50 yards from the house, immediately to the house. There's a wraparound veranda on the house, and the well is about, less than 30 feet from the wraparound veranda to the south. The septic tank is to the north of the house, immediately to the north, just across the laneway, which is virtually beside the house, going west to east. And the septic tank is virtually, I'd say, about less than 100 feet, certainly less than 100 feet from the northeast corner of the house. But both are within the realm of what's being segregated. And like
Okay with that, Marty?
Yeah, it's not between the house and where the barn is, so it looks like it's on opposite sides of the house. Yep.
Very good. Councillor Walker, did you have any questions at this time? Okay,
Nothing at this time.
thank you. Your worship.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. The uh, the question I always have when it comes to severance of agricultural property is the access to the agricultural lands. So if this severance is permitted, can you just share with me, Mr. Redup or Mr. Vandergust or Ms. Loft, if there's any agricultural access to the lands from the property that's being severed? So are there any farm accesses from that property off the driveway into the laneway or into the agricultural lands? So I'm just looking for that because future owners of the home will get themselves into a jackpot if there's something like that. Vic, do you understand what I mean?
I'd hate to say I do,
Good.
but I might. Are you asking if there's we've seen the principal driveway in this loft diagram from
Yeah.
the local road. Are you asking if there's a secondary road or driveway to the barn from the house to be severed?
That's helpful, but I'm most concerned about the access for the agricultural lands adjacent to the property that'll now be, in this particular case, on either the north side or the south side. Is there any farm access, tractor access from those properties onto those lands? If there are, then there could potentially be a conflict for a future owner of that property.
fair question. Currently, the fields to the north of the subject house and the subject area to be segregated is currently going down to Fairgrounds Road South is a hayfield.
Yeah.
And we take the hay off that to feed the animals during the winter. And we feed them in the winter on a bale grazing basis.
Okay.
And so we have access to the pasture from that hayfield through a gate immediately to the northeast of the barn into the pasture area. And that will remain. Matter of fact, in discussing the future arrangements with the Beatties, that hayfield they want to turn into, and I agree, into a pasture field for cattle, so that cattle will have access to that hayfield as well. But they have, right now it's closed off by a gate, but the Beatties take the hay from that field into the pasture field for feeding the bales of hay in the wintertime. And the bales of hay are spread.
Okay.
The pasture area is, quite apart from the hay fields, is over 100 acres. Okay. Right. For a basic herd cow operation of 20.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Redrup. That's sort of what I'm looking for, but I think back to Mr. Vandergast, I think the question I have is, are there any plans for the future farming operations of the remaining properties that will require the operator of those properties to access the severed lands to get onto the farm? So would you drive down the laneway of this property and then go off into the barn, to the fields, or would you enter the fields from another point?
We were able to, and I'm not sure for the public meeting, but I was able to get your staff to throw up on the other screen that council can see.
Yeah, we can see it here in this room, but I don't think it's online. So
As
anyway.
far as I know, they're traditional farms, traditional farmhouses and traditional driveways. So the current drive in tonight.
Yeah.
Is there on the farm further south, I guess it is. There's a traditional driveway. So there's two traditional highway accesses to the remaining farms, at least as I understand it. If that helps.
Okay, I can take this up with the staff later. I just think it's a concern, given that the lands or the severed lot could be sold to someone who's not connected to the agricultural world and doesn't want that. It's, you know, it's a possibility. I wouldn't want to see that happen personally, but that's a possibility. So
Probably a Dodgers fan.
perhaps. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just one question, Vic, I'll ask you, because you seem to have a handle on it. How would a fire truck or an ambulance service that barn? How would an ambulance or a fire truck service that barn in case of emergency? Okay, Christine, did you want to answer that?
It would
Sure,
access it
sure.
through Traditional farm access to the other
No.
two, through the other two farms.
An ambulance and a fire truck, unless there's a road, can't do that. Christine, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I will respond to that. And to the previous question, we're not proposing any easement over the existing laneway into the house for access to the field or to the barn. So it would be the intention that any access to the future barn is coming in from one of the other accesses at 2015 or 2057. And should Mr. Redrup wish to have a new entrance onto the farmlands at around or on the north farm parcel, then he could certainly apply for that application based on the extent of the access with that would be permitted. And with respect to emergency access, I mean, I think that's a valid question. There certainly would be access through the laneway of the severed lands, but only in a critical situation and not by way of easement.
So if the people who bought the place said, no, you can't come on my property, we have to go through a field, is what you're saying?
I think in any case where a barn's not located immediate to a laneway, we would certainly have the same issue. So yeah, I think that if it was in an emergency situation, then access would be from that severed parcel. But the day-to-day, there is no easement allowing access on a day-to-day basis over the severed lands.
Yeah, we've heard that. Okay, thank you. Anybody else from council, any questions? Councilor MacArthur.
Yeah, through the chair, Bill, you said that the electric fencing could be powered from, I presume, the middle barn on the middle property. So therefore, the cattle would have access to get to that middle barn if this barn wasn't allowed to stay?
Yes, the actual fence energizer for that section of the pasture comes from a shed, which is adjacent to the middle barn. And then we can reroute that very easily to encompass the north farm.
Okay.
North farm has an electric fence. right now. It's worked very effectively. It was installed by some pretty good fence people of the Whiteley family. And they maintain it every year. So any redirection will be accomplished by the Whiteley team and supervised really by, with input from myself, but by Andrew Beatty. Andrew's kind of the architect for all the fencing of the property where the cattle are maintained.
Good. Good. Do you want to speak? Councillor Deneen?
Just going back to my previous conversation, Mr. Vandergast might remember this. We personally lived in a farmhouse and the power ran right up our laneway. And when we chose to upgrade our hydro, the neighboring farm house that had had hydro that was using our laneway hydro, that was cut off. So they had to put their own power line in up beside our property. It created a lot of tension at that point. Are you prepared if you keep hydro at that barn, like lights and stuff like that, to put a new hydro line in on your own on the retained property? Because that's what we ran into.
I think what he said, so the hydro will remain to the existing residence that's to be severed off. And whatever hydro he needs, he can patch from the existing hydro source in the other barn
Okay.
as needed.
As
It
needed.
may be he only needs battery lights in the barn because it's really not used.
Okay.
So it'll be a matter of economics. In the summertime, not much happens on the barn at all. In the winter, they may just hook up a generator or something like that. But your point's well taken, but I don't think it's an issue here because he is the neighbor.
Ms. Loft, you wish to jump onto that?
Thank you. Through the chair. It's a valid question and one that I've not had a discussion with Mr. Redrup. So I'll commit to reviewing that with him and reporting back to staff so that staff can update council in their recommendation report.
Good, thank you. Okay. Any other questions? We look good. Okay. This concludes the public meeting with respect to the zoning bylaw amendment for file 2025-052, consisting of 1943, 2015, and 2057 Fairgrounds Road South, and a property with no civic address. We thank all who attended and provided comments for their interest in this matter. All input received with regards to this proposal will be fully considered by staff in their recommendation and by council in their decision with respect to this application. A report regarding this proposal will be prepared for council, who will make a decision concerning this matter at a future meeting. As there are no other public meetings on this agenda, I will pass the chair back to Mayor Measures.
Thank you very much, Deputy Mayor. All right. Thank you. For those that participated in that session, you're welcome to stay for this next session. Otherwise, you are capable of leaving if you wish. But this next session is something that's comprehensive zoning bylaw regarding the entire township. So if you're interested, this is a very important item as well. So council and for members of the public, we're going to move to item number 4, which is our comprehensive zoning bylaw review. Now, this session has now been deemed a working session and or a workshop. So we will have an opportunity to hear from staff. We will have an opportunity to just give Mr. Redrup a second there. There you go. Have a good evening, Bill. Thank you, Vic. We will hear from staff as they have been working since we had our public open house. Our open house was, I have to say, smashingly successful, given that we had a lot of people from our community come out and ask some good questions of the multiple staff members that were there. Colin and who's leading this, along with Nick, along with Darren, we've had a really good turnout here. So it's a really good event. that was held at the open house. That, of course, has brought forward a whole lot of questions. And so what we have done now is asked our staff to prepare a bit of an update where we are. And then we're going to hear from our contracted MHBC planners who are also working on this project. And that's when we're going to open up the microphone to people to ask some questions. So this is for Madam Clerk's purposes. This is a working session. There are no decisions being made. This is an opportunity for members of the public and members of this council to put in some comments if we wish as well. I'm going to turn over to Derek Abbots, who's our Director of Planning. He's going to start things off and introduce some of your team, and you can take it from here, Derek. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you, Your Worship. So just as Your Worship had mentioned, we have started on our comprehensive update to the township's zoning bylaw as a result of our 2024 official plan being approved by the County of Simcoe. So we've, as Your Worship had mentioned, we had a very eventful public open house here at the end of September. Received quite a lot of feedback. Our public engagement has been quite strong. So kudos to Colin, Danielle, and Rosalind. And Nick too as well. For all their efforts. But I don't want to steal too much of our consultants' thunder. They do have a brief presentation. And just as was mentioned, this was originally intended to be a statutory public meeting, but as with the information that we received during the public open house, we did a bit of a pivot for a working session, which we think is going to be a very helpful exercise for those folks involved. And but without further ado, I'm going to turn it over to Dave Aston and Aaliyah Clark. They're from MHBC Planning. They're our consultants on this file, and they've prepared a presentation for this evening.
All right, thank you. Welcome, Dave. Welcome, Leah.
Thank you, Your Worship, and members of council and members of the public. Do want to thank your team here for all the work they've done in putting together this evening and draft of the document and the public consultation components. Doing a new bylaw is exciting. It's creating a new path forward for how your uses and lands within the township will be used, continue to be used, and potentially be used. So it's a really exciting component of the land use planning framework in the township, and building on the hard work of council and the vision of council and staff related to the official plan. So a lot of what we're working through in the zoning bylaw is set with the framework of policy from the official plan. So tonight we wanted to just get some feedback, further feedback from the public on various elements of the zoning bylaw. When we had the open house, there was a lot of good feedback received. We've received a lot of comments through the online portal or from those that wrote comments the evening of the public meeting. And so those comments have been coordinated. The public comments received tonight and following tonight will continue to build that public document. And one of the things that we'll do as we move forward is look at each and every one of the comments and provide a response in how they've been considered or how they've been addressed relative to the draft bylaw. So the presentation tonight generally is going to follow the report that was provided by staff. And like I said, we appreciate the feedback that we've been receiving, the feedback we're going to hopefully hear tonight. We've tried to identify a few hot topics that we think are significant changes in the zoning bylaw to get some feedback from everyone this evening. So next slide. Just administratively, notice and circulation, we're following the Planning Act requirements as it relates to notice requirements. Tonight, as Derek had mentioned, was intended to be the statutory public meeting, but based on comments received, we felt important to do a working session and continue to have the public component and input element of the bylaw open for feedback. Next slide. So public comments that were received by October 22nd were part of the published agenda for the working session tonight. We don't intend to go through those in specific detail or respond to those tonight, but they were published as part of tonight's information. And the township's still collecting comments. There's a hyperlink there on the form on the website or on the presentation in the agenda to provide further information, and further comments that are received are going to, as I said, continue to build as part of the public consultation package. Next slide. So this, again, as Derek mentioned, the purpose is to implement the official plan and to ensure that the planning framework in the zoning bylaw is consistent with provincial policy. So there's two levels we're working toward, a provincial level and a local level. And the intent here is to create a full new zoning bylaw for the township. So replacing what is in effect now with an entirely new comprehensive bylaw, including definitions, regulations, and mapping. Next slide. As I mentioned, the intent tonight is to get some additional feedback on elements that are not related to the EP zone, which I'll speak to in a second. So there's a number of different topics we're looking to get some feedback on. And we're looking for that tonight. And what we'll do is introduce the topic, provide a bit of background on it, and then open the mic up to public comments specifically as it relates to that theme, if you will. Next slide. Environmental protection zone. We have received a lot of comments. I know comments are still coming in with regard to the environmental protection zone. And I spoke to many people, as well as many others spoke to people about the environmental protection zone and how the changes in the environmental protection zone were potentially impacting or changing the zone on various properties. We're not intending to address that tonight. What I can say is that we've been working quite diligently with township staff, county staff, conservation authority staff in background associated with the delineation of the EP zone, reviewing the comments and looking at those areas. So we're working to address the comments. In some cases, we're finding that just through overlays of some of the mapping, there may be some changes. There may not be changes on some properties, but there may be changes on other properties. And that's something that we're trying to work through. And as we had mentioned at the open house, and I think a lot of people have written comments in, which is great, we'll look at every single property and every single comment and make sure that we've done our best to address that comment or concern. Next slide. So as far as the review process, the official plan was approved just about close to this time last year. The new zoning bylaw was initiated in the winter of 24, and draft zoning bylaw. So the first working draft or the first draft of the bylaw was provided to the township in June of 2025. So between 2024 and 2025, there was a lot of background work done with the township, taking a look at the zones, how we're going to structure the bylaw, what changes would be proposed, and how would we implement the official plan framework. The open house was in September. That is where the first draft of the bylaw was presented. Tonight we're having the working session, and there'll be additional comment period until November 5th. A formal public meeting, we're based on feedback tonight, based on how we're working through and addressing the comments, will be confirmed at a later date. So as I get to the end of this presentation, you'll see contact information, link to the website. If you have signed up for the public meeting, you'll be notified directly So we'll be certain to make sure people are aware of the formal public meeting. There'll be an updated draft of the zoning bylaw. So what people have seen before, it's not as though that's the final bylaw. We'll be working through the comments and addressing those, which will likely lead to an updated bylaw that would be provided for public meeting review. And then ultimately, there'll be a recommendation report to council for a new bylaw. So as we get into tonight and the working session, as I mentioned, these were some of the topics that are relatively new to the bylaw. They were new to the official plan, and we wanted to look to get some feedback on them. So additional residential units and how those would be considered and where those would be considered. On-farm diversified uses, again, the official plan has a lot of information on on-farm diversified uses, where they're permitted, criteria associated with those permissions. And so we wanted to talk about how that is being dealt with in the bylaw. Home businesses, use of shipping containers, residential lot fabric. One of the things that this proposed bylaw is doing is taking the old bylaw and trying to consolidate or simplify residential zones for a little more streamlined approach and some flexibility for residential uses within the township. A review of parking requirements, a review of how archaic plans would be dealt with, requirements for cluster development. So currently, the bylaw doesn't have specific regulations associated with a block for townhouses, as an example. And that's something that as a housing form and housing type that is growing to address some of the market requirements. And then private servicing using cisterns. So we'll kind of start each topic with a bit of an overview. What's being proposed as a recommendation to initiate the discussion, and then look to receive some feedback. We're here to answer, provide some clarification perhaps on what's being recommended in the explanation, but our main goal tonight is to receive input and feedback to assist with the next draft. So, topic 1, additional residential units. What's being recommended is establishing criteria associated with additional residential units. And these would limit ARUs to 1 per lot outside of settlement areas, 2 per lot within settlement areas, and limit them within the farm building cluster on an agricultural rural property. So what's being proposed is expanding the permissions for detached additional residential units. In the old bylaw, they were called accessory dwelling units. And this is really implementing direction from the official plan and implementing direction from provincial policy as it relates to permission for additional residential units to provide for additional housing types and opportunities within the township. So I'll pause there and open the floor, and maybe, Your Worship, I'll turn over to you to facilitate each of the.
Absolutely.
Great.
No problem, Dave. Thanks very much. Before we speak about ARUs, is there anybody have any questions about how we're going to do this tonight? This is a working session, so you could just give us your ideas. But as Dave was saying, the staff are going to be recording and writing down everything that we say here tonight to help them make decisions and maybe change the plan a little bit. So we have the list of items that are going to be talked about. He's presenting right now on ARUs. So if you have a comment about additional residential units, the microphone's open. Come on up. Anybody want to say anything about additional residential units and how they're played out in this proposed bylaw? I'll get to council in a second. I know Paul wants to go right away. So is anybody from the audience? All right. Okay, Paul, go ahead.
There, quick question.
Oh, hang on. We got a gentleman. Stop.
okay, so-
He's quick to get
Hurry
to
up,
the
Compass.
mic.
Slouching. My name's Steve Main.
Is the light green
Lights
on?
on.
Good, thank you.
Just a clarification. I read all the material coming in and this latest clarification does help. But, so definition of a settlement area, just for everybody, that's within the general town areas, like within Stainer, Creamore, the pockets. Is that the right interpretation? Or I just get a,
Through
One
your
other thing I was going to add, if you could always speak your name when you come forward so that we know who you are.
Stephen Main.
Nice to see you, sir.
Yeah, thank
Go
you.
right ahead, Dave.
through your worship to the speaker, but first, I'll probably turn on and off this mic a number of times, and you'll see Derek over leaning to help me. Yes, to clarify, when we reference settlement areas, it means the identified limits of Stainer, Creemore, as identified through the official plan. So kind of
Perfect.
settlement areas, what some may call the town limits or the urban areas. That's the intent of that.
That's fair. So in the clarification, I'm curious then, for those that live outside of the settlement areas, what is the restriction of not having two? Doesn't appear, we were the ones that often have space to do that, to accommodate parking, and may have needs for that for either extended family and or caregivers. So that's just a comment and thoughts on that. I do appreciate the farm building cluster concept. That's actually important because we don't want random on lots. Well, that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, Dave, you comfortable with that? You got that information?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Paul, go ahead.
Dave, could you speak a bit, I just question you on the ARUs in a farm building cluster. In a lot of our situations in a farming community, which we are, we have, I will say, seasonal workers. We have grandparents who are living on the farm. Why are we limiting the farms to one, whereas, as the previous gentleman mentioned, farms traditionally have a lot more demand and also a lot more room for building ADUs. And also to add to that, are we talking about at all about building suites within houses, or are we strictly totally separate freestanding buildings?
Through worship to counselor, and I'll probably also rely on others here to respond to some of the questions. But one point of clarification, when we're talking about ARUs, that is something a bit different than when we're talking about seasonal worker housing. That's a different permission. So that would be different than an ARU. But when we're talking ARUs, it would be within a house or a separate structure on a lot. And then the intent of the number in the farm building cluster, I think that's something we could look at, but yeah, go ahead.
Through your worship, that restriction was put in place based on official plan policies, which do allow additional ARUs should you come through with an amendment. However, as of right, the official plan does not permit more than one ARU outside of the settlement areas, so on an agricultural or a rural lot.
I think, I think it's very important we revisit that topic, because I say seasonal workers. We have people now who are on some particular dairy farms in this community are here 12 months of the year. And so it's not seasonal. We'll call them migrant workers. We can call them whatever you want. And so they are there permanently, and we need that accommodation within that cluster. And also, as like I say, it's very important for a lot of our families for generational transition, where farmers traditionally don't want to leave the farm. So I think it's something we should look at increasing that number on a farm basis.
Through your worship, but fair comments, and what we'll do is in this section in kind of the report, provide a little more clarity on that, because as I mentioned, the farm worker housing is different than the ARU, and the farm worker housing is permitted and isn't counted as an ARU. So we can provide some more clarity on how the different housing forms work with farming and farm building clusters.
Okay. All right, thank you. Is there any other comments on the ARU presentation so far? Yes, I see some hands. Come forward to the microphone. You're next. This young lady right here, she may have to pull the microphone down to you, just saying.
Uh-huh.
Ha ha ha, there you go.
Story of my life.
We've got it, it's okay.
I'm good.
She's gonna show you something really
I'm here.
neat. Watch this, this is cool. Watch this. And down it goes, push. Squeeze it,
Now that I'm on,
do it. There you go. Ah, look at that.
thank you for telling everybody I'm short. Anyway, I have no idea.
What's your name?
Oh, my name's Joanne Beaver.
Okay,
Anyway, I really don't understand what's going on. I just heard about this meeting the last couple of days. So I have one question. The one that says to limit the ARUSs on rural property. Limited to what? Limit one ARUS or two? Like, I'm reading that and I'm not quite understanding. ARUSs are additional residential units.
correct.
Am I correct? Okay. So what are you going to limit it to on rural property? I have a rural property.
Yes,
We bought it with the understanding that one of our children would probably take over and we would put an addition on
right,
for my husband and myself.
okay.
So I just want to know what the
So are
limit
there,
would be.
can I ask then, are there other family members who live at this house with you? You're putting an addition on right now?
No,
Okay, so you've bought a property, you
This
have a
is-
home and you're,
I've been here for 36 years,
oh, well, there you go.
okay? And I'm not quite old enough yet that I need care.
Gotcha.
But when the time comes, we want to be able to have a little place.
Right.
Now, does it have to be attached to the house? Can we
So-
have a separate?
And that's what I was trying to get to. There's two ways to do that. You can do an ARU that's attached to the house, and that's just an expansion on the property, or on the house. You go through a regular building permit process. The zoning bylaw that's being proposed will create an as of right to allow you to have a separate ARU unit, which is a separate unit. You understand? Rather than attached to the house.
Right.
So for instance, in the Niagara Escarpment area, which is part of our township, you must have that first before you can get an ARU in the Niagara Escarpment area.
Right.
Okay? And actually getting an ARU in the Niagara Escarpment area is extremely difficult, just so you know.
Okay.
But these guys want to speak to help clarify some of the mumblings that I'm giving you, but I get what you're saying. So
Okay.
let's go to these guys right here. Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, through your worship to the speaker. So just to clarify as well, if you and your husband were just looking to do simply just an addition to your house, say for additional living space, expanding your kitchen, these are just examples, that wouldn't classify as an ARU, it would just be an addition to your house. So to try to clarify, and what your worship was saying, is you could have an additional residential unit. It would have to meet that definition and be a separate unit, but can be attached to your house. Or you could have one that is detached, say in an accessory garage or a separate structure, meeting the definition of a dwelling unit. Usually there's some sort of living quarters, a bathroom, a kitchen, and some amenity space in there. That's just to clarify that. So, if you wanted to simply do an addition, you're free to do that. Again, subject to building permit applications. But we would assess it whether or not it's a separate unit and meets the definition of a dwelling unit.
Thank you.
Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Does that help?
Oh, and I'm sorry, I'm new to all this.
Oh, no, welcome. Happy to
Um,
have you here.
Where do I get all the information that's going on tonight? Is it like online or somewhere?
Through your worship. So we can, if you want, I can collect your contact information. If you're tech savvy, we can certainly send you links to everything that's on the township's website. And Colin over there, I know, has been kind of gatekeeping all of our comments and information, but I'll make sure that Colin has your information. So
Thank you.
yeah, so if
Just
you-
see Colin Funk right over
or
here.
yeah, just speak to Colin and
He's
Colin
got
will
some
record your name
paperwork
and
right there.
everything.
You can just fill it out.
Okay, thank you
Okay.
so much.
Thanks very much for being here.
Thank you.
Oops, hello, phone. Okay, I saw Mr. Squire and then we'll take
mic or just turn the mic up because we cannot hear back here. Young lady that was there was very good because she ate the mic.
Okay. Are you able to hear me? Okay. Thanks very much, John, for that. Appreciate that. Okay. We're really going to make the system work. Please come forward. Oh, hi. I didn't quite recognize who it was. How are you?
Good.
It's a dream come true. Look at that. All right. How you doing, Chantel?
Good, how are you?
Great. Nice to see you here tonight.
So I'm Chantal Limgart. I'm here with my brother, Justin.
Is Justin here too?
Yeah.
Oh, hey, how are you? Hey, buddy.
So we own a 5-generation farm in Singhampton, and we are just concerned about the additional residential units with some questions. Is there a size limit for the ARUs that would be that you would be allowed within the farming cluster?
Dave, Aaliyah, what do you got?
No.
Negative. There you go. There's no size limit. So
And-
you're going to get an application for a 25,000 square foot home to. Well, are you in the Niagara Escarpment area? Because that's how they get them up there. But anyway.
And I believe the zoning bylaw before was it had to be within 50 meters of the existing house, and now it's changing to within a farm cluster. So just would be looking for clarification as to what's considered within a farming cluster.
Perfect. There you go.
The bylaw does define what a farm cluster is. Generally, if you were to, if I were to define or describe it, house, barn, out buildings, the intent is that it's not an ARU out in the middle of the field, not connected to the rest of the operation. But it is defined in the bylaw on what the cluster is, and the 50-meter separation distance is no longer.
And then would it have to share a well and a septic with the original building, or would they require their own?
We can confirm, but I don't believe the bylaw specifies that. That would be a building code requirement. You'd have to justify that there's capacity or the ability or feasibility to accommodate the new well and septic through the building code process. But at this point, the bylaw doesn't say it doesn't say one way or the other.
Okay, so it could be either, whichever works.
Yes.
And then on that recommended provisions, you're allowing 2 ARs within a settlement area. And we clarified that that was within Stainer, Creemore, for example. So I own a house in Stainer, tiny lot, but you're telling me I can have 2 ARUs, whereas my brother owns 100 acres and he can have 1. So how would that look within the town? Would there be a restriction on the amount of lots that could be covered? And just kind of confused as to why you can have then 3 buildings on a small lot within town, but only 2 within the farming cluster.
Just by way of a bit of explanation. So in the settlement areas or the towns, there are services. Number one, that's one reason. And then there is other criteria on how you get to the 2 ARUs. So that's in the bylaw insofar as parking and those types of things on how you get the additional ARU in the settlement area. And I think we heard the comment about the outside the settlement area, so we'll take a look at that. But part of that is the official plan, but part of the consideration is there are other ways in which to have additional residential associated with agricultural buildings in support of the agricultural operation.
Thank you. Sorry, just reading my points. Yeah, and then just back to the ARUs being allowed, I think that they're great because lot severances, as we saw earlier in the meeting, are quite restrictive. And with grandparents, parents, children, housing being quite expensive in the area, difficult to find. If you're not able, like we think, okay, we have 100 acres, why can't we sever a lot to build a house? But if you're able to do an ARU, then that provides alternative options for the families that want to stay in the area, since the lot severances are not available. So I guess that's why I'm questioning why you're only allowed one on a large property. So thank you.
Good questions. Thank you. Thank you for presenting. Great. Justin, did you want to back her up or you got anything else you want to add? Okay, attaboy. Okay, come on up. Come on up. I knew you would. Come on up.
So I'm Justin Limegert. I just kind of on the other side of like what this family was doing here. Back to the zoning, like right now, all the farmers nowadays, I don't know the exact line of it, but where they're able to buy the farm, 100-acre farm. Farmers don't want to be tenants, so they're allowed to sever off the 1 hectare of the house.
Yep.
Right, and then sell that, and then they just want to keep their land, which is great for the farmers. I'm all for that, but I'm not up to it 100%. But I just wanted to know, like, is there a plan for like in 20 years or 50 years when I don't know, like farming unfortunately is a dying breed. Like we have all these older generation farmer guys, like the Beatties and everybody. Yeah, we're staying. Where their kids aren't going to take over farming, right?
Yeah.
And so my worry is 30 years, 40, whatever, are we going to have all these landlocked properties, 98-acre farms that you can't build a house on? Have you guys thought of that? Or like,
Yeah.
I'm not against doing what they're doing. I'm just,
All right.
I'm a young builder, so
I hear you.
I'm just, doesn't make a lot of sense, but it does at the same time, right?
Okay, Justin, first of all, the comments about the previous public meeting, that meeting's already closed, but
That's fine.
But we're
I'm
going to take the
just-
comments as part of the discussion here about how zoning impacts.
That's just part of the farming.
As farming is farming it. So that's where I'd like to accept that. And I think our staff can appreciate that. So, you're absolutely right. If, in 30, 35 years, if agricultural operations change to the point where they're not operating properly or not viable, and a landowner who has been farming and, or let's say a young person comes into the ownership of farming land that he can't farm anymore, even though his parents and grandparents have, obviously there's going to have to be a zoning change of some type to make that property usable for something else. Other than that, it'll just turn into scrub.
Yeah.
So we'll have to deal with that when we get to it,
Okay.
which is the reality. We don't want that to happen. Everything we've been doing here in Clearview has been to try to help support and make sure that farming continues.
Yeah, no, it's a great idea for that.
Great
Yeah.
operation, but I want you to know it's on our minds.
Yeah.
Because every threat that comes to agricultural lands is taken seriously here, and we do everything we can to mitigate the impact to the whole community. So I would suggest through the planning department, we do these type of reviews periodically, sometimes 5 years, sometimes 10 years, and they get reviewed. And that's when comments from the public, like what you just said, are, thinking about the future. Those things need to be included when we do this process once again as a community, right?
Yeah.
So let's just say we're working from a status quo that we're, the economy is continuing in this direction, and we have confidence that agriculture is going to continue.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
So we got to work from that direction. Whereas we have to also be mindful that there will be changes in the future. So, for instance, there's possibility of Stainer getting a little bit larger. You had comments earlier about the settlement area. The settlement area could expand in Stainer. And the reason is it's 32 years ago that we did the settlement area expansion to Stainer. 32 years ago.
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's now just starting to get built. It takes that long for those housing operations to get to the point where they're being built.
Yeah.
So if we have to go through that process of expanding our settlement areas again, it'll still be a 30-year process before they actually get built.
Yeah.
So we have to start somewhere.
No, that's fair. Thank you.
Is that fair?
Yeah.
Thank you very much. Good job. Okay, questions about ARUs? Anything else? Is there a question here? Yes, hi. Hi, Trace, come on up.
Tracy Atkinson.
Yes.
A few questions in terms of the detached versus attached with residential units. I'm just cognizant of the fact that the detached can have more impacts on neighbors than the attached. And so I've seen in some municipalities where attached are encouraged and separated out from the detached. And so I'd ask if there's consideration for that, if you're considering increasing, for example, the number permitted in the rural areas, that may be an option, is to allow those attached as well as that detached. In terms of the farm worker housing, I do read that the draft wording refers to housing for the farmer opposed to the farmer and their family, for example. So maybe just another look at how that definition and those policies or provisions may limit the ability to build a house for your son or daughter who may be operating or working on the farm, but what about their families as well? And then, because I did hear no cap on the size of those, however, that may essentially be capping those farm houses inadvertently. And lastly, the clustering approach, well, it appears to be providing that additional flexibility to the farmer. I do wonder how you implement that at the building permit stage. So sometimes it may be better to have a distance so it's not an arbitrary decision at the building permit stage.
Appreciate that. Just hang on there for a second. Dave, Aaliyah, do you have any comments on that?
No, I think just taking notes on the comments. My one comment would be, I think we need to clarify for information all the different types of housing permitted on a farm, because there's different types. ARUs, farm help house, seasonal workers, and that may help. I think the bylaw defines them all, but we can kind of put it into one spot as well. And the rest are good comments, and I think we'll give them consideration.
All right.
Thank
you,
you.
Tracy. Thank you. Paul, did you want to jump in on that too?
Yeah, I'll just throw this at Derek. What Tracy just mentioned about in-house ARUs, there's certain municipalities that are making it mandatory to pre-service ARUs in houses. Have we thought about that at all?
Through your worship to the deputy mayor, yes, I believe we have. I know some of the new developments on the east end of Allison are purpose-built with, we'll call them basement apartments, which would be considered an additional residential unit.
Correct, correct.
So they're all, the rough-in is done through the building code. I know there's further work that needs to be completed, just speaking with our chief building official, like with respect to fire separation, ensuring there's adequate parking, all that sort of thing. So just to clarify within a settlement area too, when it comes to additional residential units. So they are permitted anywhere where a single semi or a townhouse is permitted on a lot. But it's subject to all the provisions within the zoning bylaw, and that means setbacks, parking is a big one, and then also lot coverage. So just to try to put it to ease as well, like I know there are some small lots, just because an additional residential unit is permitted on a lot doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work. And in terms of meeting all of the other provisions of the zoning bylaw and parking, I can tell you just from previous experience, parking is definitely an issue, and lot coverage are
Okay, good.
usually
So we
what
don't,
dictates.
what I'm getting at here, we don't need to put anything into our work right now to enable that. That's already dealt with.
No, it's a conversation we do have with new developers for new subdivisions. It's encouraged. I think from a product perspective, they advertise that as an incentive that houses aren't cheap these days, and offering that opportunity for having those are basically purpose built and readily available if someone should elect to install a basement apartment, that it can be an opportunity for them. So I know there are some developments in Stayner that currently have that in place.
Thank you.
Right.
Yeah.
Good. All right, last time. Anybody else on ARU discussion? All right. Oh, Marty, did you have something?
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you.
I just have a question about the farm building cluster. Do we define that at all? Because I don't see it. Because you don't want somebody building on the back 40s or whatever. But some farm clusters, I mean, it might be not, they're pretty skinny, so they don't lose a lot of their fields. Is there a definition for it? Did I miss that?
Go ahead.
Through your worship, yes, there is in the definitions, farm building clusters defined.
All right, thank you very much. Okay, we're going to close this one, and then we're going to move on to on-farm diversified use, Dave? Is that right?
On-farm
So
diversified.
Henry, wake up, pay attention back there.
To continue with the planning acronyms,
Thank you.
OFDUs.
OFDUs, on-farm diversified use, okay.
So
Carry on.
OFDUs came really into play when the provincial policy changed and encouraged different forms, or not different forms, provided further direction on agricultural uses, on farm diversified uses, and supporting agriculture. So the PPS was then built into the official plan. And so what the bylaw is doing is essentially recommending the direction of the official plan into the zoning categories and regulations. So what's being proposed also gives consideration to some of the background work that the ministry has done and direction documents as well that led into official plan policy. So provisions include limiting the OFDUs to a 2% lot coverage, permit many uses as of right and in an agricultural use and a rural zone. Colin did a great job in providing a comparison of what's permitted now, what's permitted under the new regulations on page 4 of the report. So page 4, 5, and 6 actually contain a lot of the details on what's considered on-farm use, what's an accessory use. So there's a lot of information within that. So the proposed zoning is really implementing the official plan. And as Lee has mentioned on one of the others, again, we're working within the framework of the official plan. The official plan does also give some other considerations for uses subject to a zoning bylaw. So what this is doing is establishing what's permitted as of right. But the official plan does give a little bit more direction on, okay, this is permitted as of right. If you wanted to do something else, that may be permitted under the official plan, but you may require a zoning bylaw amendment. So that's OFDUs. And again, a lot of information is in the report starting at page 4.
All right, thank you, Dave. Okay, who would like to come forward and speak about on-farm diversified uses? Nobody's jumping up. Mr. Van Staveren.
Always so.
Not-
Oh,
Henry's
Henry's
coming.
coming.
That's great.
You can have
Nice to see you, sir.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Worship. My name is Henry Brubaker, and we've had an experience and an occasion that we've bought a farm over in Maple Valley. And the farm is 96 acres with a 2-acre commercially zoned property. And we've been working at getting a permit for a rebuild. So as far as the farm portion of the farm there, if we ever consider doing an OFDU, we've been provided with quite an extensive checklist of requirements that needs to be done, which is about the same checklist as the commercial side of things. So I think, and it's quite a lengthy process. So I think to keep on-farm diversified uses, simplify it and make it more accessible for farmers in a timely manner. So that is my concern, that the OFDUs have a simplified version of a checklist for the planning purposes. Somebody had put in an article in the Creamer Echo and hit the nail pretty much on the head to make it simpler to acquire an OFDU and not apply the same checklist, excuse me, as the commercial side of things and it's also very cost prohibitive, you know, to acquire that checklist, to all the engineering and the fees. So that is my concern, to make the OFDUs for the on-farm more accessible and cost prohibitive.
All right. Thank you, Henry. Just stay there for 1 second,
Okay.
if you would. Planners and presenters, this gentleman has been going through a process to establish and reestablish a commercial site that's part of the farm property. It's all attached. And the struggle that he's been having, as he just explained, was that the whole process has been driven by the expectations of a commercial site when it's actually a farm site. Here's the challenge: is that he and his colleagues have made an application that's right in the middle of our process, because we've got the official plan works done, and now we're doing the zoning now, which, can you just explain again, which I think you said in your opening comment here on this section, was about how we wanted to give them a whole list of things that are as of right that they can do, and then other things that might be extended beyond that would have to go to a zoning bylaw. Is that right?
Through your worship, without knowing the details, just having talked to Derek
Sure.
of the application, the intent of the bylaw is to provide some clarity on what's permitted as of right. And it may be a case where there's an official plan, but the new zoning isn't in place, and the new zoning reads a little bit different than how the OFDUs are proposed in the new bylaw. There's still maybe, I'm not sure, maybe the reference to checklist might have been site plan review. So there'd still be some site plan review element to that. But I think with the new bylaw, well, my hope would be with the new bylaw, it will provide some clear direction that would help streamline in the future. And on the site specific element, I think fair point. And how do we simplify or make this easier, if you will, through the site plan process? I think it may be outside of the realm of the zoning bylaw, but something that I think staff could take a look at. Requirements for site plan approvals and the site plan control bylaw for OFDUs and agricultural uses. So I think it's fair comment, and appreciate the comment.
I think it's very fair comment. That's why I asked you to stay, because I want you to know that we've heard these comments before, and we're trying, you know, to streamline this process, to make it understood what on-farm diversified uses will be as of right. You know, so one that is as of right, you can plant corn.
So
That's been
basically
as of
what-
right. You
Right.
can bring cattle, you can have livestock, you know, all those things that are
Right.
as of right on that property right now.
So thank you, Mr. Mayor. So an as of right so that would simplify and narrow the planning process down by quite a bit.
Yes.
So an as of right, you would provide your site plan, you'd provide your permit application, and obviously do the zoning.
Right.
You have to rezone the 2% lot coverage and all that, but an as of right would simplify it quite a bit.
That's the great hope.
Yes.
You know, that is really what we're trying to do.
That-
There are some great complications in our current zoning bylaw, and so I'm very grateful
Right.
that we're initiating this whole process.
Yeah.
As the community, as you've seen, have come out to hear about this. So
Exactly.
this is one of many issues, but we're getting this resolved, and I look forward to reading the report and hearing about that. I'm sure members of council do too. So
Yes. So
Derek, did you have something else? So, no, okay, sorry.
I was just going to say, Mr. Mayor, that we've been working at my application for 2.5 years.
I know.
And if we start buying farms for, to use as a farm and also an OFDU, and you get an influx of applications and each application would take 2 years, that is, that's probably not going to work for us. So,
I understand.
yes,
I understand. So, we're making progress.
yes, thank you.
We are,
Thank you.
and it's a change, in
Yes.
Simcoe County as to how this has been going. I know that we've talked about this and, other counties that are neighbors to us, operate a little differently.
Correct.
And so that's one of the things. While we are Clearview Township, we're also part of Simcoe, and so we have to abide by the commonalities of those
Right.
rules that make the whole, it's a greater
Yes.
good philosophy.
Yes.
So.
Oh, and I can commend Clearview Township to consider the OFDUs. That's a major hurdle, right?
Yes.
In the official plan. And that has been a great hurdle for us to buy farms in the township, which makes it more appealing as well, because we all know a 100-acre farm, a family farm, is not self-sustainable.
No.
So that's why we require the OFDUs. And to simplify that would be a major help to us.
No problem.
Thank you.
I appreciate what you're saying, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here tonight. All right. On the, Paul, something you want to say, and then if there's
Just,
somebody else.
while
that's interested-
Henry's,
Yeah.
I just wanted to question, we've defined 2% lot coverage. So let's just go back to a 100-acre farm, or in Mr. Brubaker's case, it's 98 acres. But call it 100. So that's 2 acres they can define as on farm. Is there a restriction in the ratio of building coverage to outside storage?
Through your worship, the 2% would apply to the entire area used for the on-farm diversified use. So if you had an outdoor storage area specifically for the on-farm diversified use, that is equated it is accounted for in the 2%. So your indoor building area as well as any outdoor storage.
Okay,
would be
so
part
we're
of
not
that.
going to restrict our applicants to like 3,000 square feet. It's like some of our neighboring communities do. We're going to say you've got 2% and what you do with it is fine.
Yeah, and that would be established through the site plan process.
That's
The
fine.
planning
That's not a
staff will
problem.
review that.
Good, thank you.
All right. Come right up. Hi there. And guys, there's a couple of seats up here. Come on up.
Hello, my name is Monica Brannigan, and I really want to commend the council on the strong intention you've declared in the official plan and in the strategic plan to really support farms and farms of all intensities. And given that 32% of farms are less than 69 acres, that means there's a lot of farms that need a lot of support. And at this time, with the zoning bylaw the way it is right now, there is nothing in there to make it easier than it was before. And in fact, you could argue that it's actually a little more difficult now that everybody has to have site plan approval. So if we're focusing on what can we do with the zoning bylaw, I think a really big missed opportunity is lumping all on-farm diversified uses, consider them the same, and they're not. You know, the example you may be aware of is I'm in a process where I want to have 24 people a week, just 24. So 3 times a week, 8 people come. And the permitting process, when I first was given it, was $150,000. And through a process that I am very glad that the planning department is willing to engage with me, I think it'll be down to 50,000. I can do this because I'm not relying on farm income. I'm in a very fortunate position. No farmer is going to do an on-farm diversified use if it takes them years to recover the permitting cost. It's either not going to happen or they're just going to do their own thing. And we all know that there's lots of farms that are just doing their own thing. The other possibility is, and you referred to this mere measures in the TVO documentary. You talked about how they're disappearing and becoming cottages. Well, this is a great recipe for having a whole lot more cottages. So I think there are some really good ways of thinking about the scale, the potential impact, the potential income. And that's also related to the litigation risk that you're worried about as a municipality. Smaller risk probably means you don't have to have the same studies. And not all of them need to be done by consultants. There's lots of great information out there that you don't always have to have a consultant to do. Because right now, the balance is really supporting the consulting industry at the expense of farming families. That balance can be readdressed. So, you know, in conclusion, you've got this great intention, but this zoning bylaw is not going to get you there. And as has already been mentioned, some of the minimum completeness requirements and site plan approval bylaws are going to have to be looked at closely because these kind of things go hand in hand. But thank you.
All right. Well, thank you very much for the comments. I would just respond by saying that one of the challenges of municipalities is that we are creatures of the province, and so we obviously must follow all the provincial regulations that are above us. And so many of those things in site plans. I'm thinking of this property up at Maple Valley. Some of the things in that site plan are very much focused on provincial issues. The wells, they have to test wells and then confirm wells and volume of water pumping in the well. And yet the well's always been pumping water up there. It's never had a problem, but they have to go through a full test consultant because the province of Ontario says that our staff can't move that forward until such time as we have an engineering report that's supported by good engineering standards that are supported by the province of Ontario through their regulations to allow this to move forward. So it's like, you can't make a decision because you can't move forward. You can't make a decision. You have to meet this requirement. And these requirements are not something that this table sets or these staff come up with. So all I'm suggesting to you is that, yes, there are a lot of costs involved, but this is what happens in Ontario. So.
Well, it doesn't happen everywhere, and there's nothing to say that there are not alternative ways of determining whether a well can serve 24 extra people a week, which is the same as if, in fact, less than if my mom comes to visit for the weekend. I shouldn't need to pay $10,000 for a hydrogeologic report when common sense should be able to be used, and a good well record and all of this other stuff. But so all I'm pushing back on,
I get it,
is that it's not written in stone that you need a hydrogeologic report. So there can be some ways of simplifying and reducing costs, because if you don't reduce costs, they aren't going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And I'm not suggesting you do anything that goes against the PPS, but I think there are a lot more creative ways and a lot more flexibility that can be built in than have been thought of yet.
right. So again, our objectives, and you heard Dave, the consultant, say that we are trying to make this as smooth as possible so that we can have a better experience for people to come forward and ask for their applications to make changes to their properties. That's what this whole zoning thing's about. So, you know, on-farm diversified use, what we're talking about right now, but there's a whole lot of other issues that are also fall underneath provincial regulations and create a whole lot of stress and strain for property owners. So I hear you.
We're not arguing here.
Thank you. I'm glad we're not arguing because I'm looking forward to hearing how your application comes out too. So thank you. On the on-farm diversified use, is there someone else? Oh, David, yes, go right ahead.
Sorry, I just wanted to pick up on that as far as how the new bylaw is helping. Under the current approach, the bylaw required a landowner to rezone for an agriculturally related commercial use. And so that was a process. You had to rezone to do this. But what this bylaw is going to do is establish as of right OFDUs, what you can do. Now, are there going to be instances where someone may want to do something larger or different? Maybe. But the official plan provides a bit of direction on what they need to do there. But that is one of the main differences here, is that as of right, these uses are going to be, they will be permitted, versus current process, a zone change was required.
Okay, thank you very much for that support. I see Councillor Deneen has something she would like to ask. Bring that microphone right over to you.
Thank
John,
you.
John, let us know if you can hear.
Thank you. To David, when we had our last meeting, I was asking Roslyn, she said, just for instance of what you were telling us now, that the frontage on County Road 124 from Nottawa has the potential of being that sort of property, that it can have like a, a business out on the frontage of the properties. And I'm trying to think, it was something to do with the zoning, and I can't remember the name of it. Can you, it looks like you've got something for me, so just help me out with that.
Through the mayor, may I actually, I don't know the property, and I see Rosalind has her hand up.
Hey, Rosalind.
Hi, I can help maybe with this. Was it the rural crossroads zone that you were talking about and the agricultural crossroads zone? So those are things that we established through the official plan, but are now being implemented through the zoning bylaw. And they are particular areas, as you say, they're kind of like almost like a little circle or a little I'm missing my words right now, but anyhow, you're right. There are some special provisions or uses that are potentially permitted, and Maple Valley is one of those areas. Yes.
Mr. Van Staveren.
Quick question for clarification. With these on-farm diversified uses, is there a minimum size to the property that we will accept? Is it only on agricultural based properties as opposed to a rural property? And does a person have to be a bona fide farmer to apply for this?
Through your worship, generally, and I'll look to others, but it's agricultural use and also in the rural zone, so both zones.
Okay.
And on the farmer,
Through your worship, the former zoning bylaw did include the wording of a bona fide farmer, I believe, in the definition of on-farm diversified use. That reference has been removed, so you would just refer to the definition of an on-farm diversified use to determine if you could have that use or not.
So it's strictly use now, not a bona fide farmer. Is there a minimum size for the farm operation or for the land base?
Go ahead, Derek.
Yeah, through your worship to the deputy mayor. So within the definition of on-farm diversified use, that it doesn't specify the size per se, but it does state that the use has to be located on a farm and clearly secondary to the principal agricultural use on the property. So I think in determining whether or not an on-farm diversified use is appropriate on a farming property, whether it's, I think where agricultural is permitted, whether it's on a rural property or an agricultural property, there has to be some form of agricultural use that is the principal use of the property. And an on-farm diversified use is inherently in the title that it's diversifying a farm operation.
Okay, so it has to be a farm operation or capable of being a farm operation to qualify for an on-farm OFDU. Okay, thank you.
We're going to go to Mr. Funk. Colin, go ahead.
Thank you. Just to add to that, one of the elements that would be related to the minimum size would be the 2% lot coverage. On a large farm, that would give you a fair bit of area with which to put an OFDU, but on a smaller farm parcel, you would that 2% number would be quite a lot smaller. So I think practically you would run into some challenges, but I will let our consultants speak to any more than that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. One more time for on-farm diversified use. Yes. Come forward again, sir. You got a green light?
Yes.
Thank you.
So my name is Solomon Martin. So on the on-farm diversified uses, the way other townships do it is they cap it at 8,000 or 10,000 square meters, so that somebody can't buy 300 acres and build a huge building. And the other thing is the PPS 2024 permits 2% of the lot size, then 20% of that can be a building. That's what PPS 2024 says. Thank you.
All right, that's good news. Dave, have you understood that and how we could associate that? Go ahead.
Nope, that's appreciate the comment. No, that's something we're looking at or have looked at, the PPS and the regulations. As we said, we haven't proposed a cap at this point.
All right, we'll look forward to the report on that. Thank you. Thank you, Solomon. One more time for any other questions on OFDUs. Okay, we're going to move on then. Dave, take us over to home businesses.
Home businesses. So they're again, home businesses are permitted in the OP in the current bylaw. What we're proposing is to maintain that intent of home business. They were previously called home occupations. What the bylaw is doing is expanding where home business can locate. So it could now be located in accessory building where previously it couldn't be. And then it's providing some regulation associated to the size of that home business and storage area for that home business, and the total number of patrons, clients, or students at a given time. So really just looking to clarify the home business and its location and scale.
All right. Thank you very much, Dave. Is there anyone who'd like to comment on home businesses and how they are looked at in the new proposed zoning? Yes. Hello, come forward. Whoops. Whoop. You lost all the good information there.
Thank you. I purchased a.
Can I get your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Lisanne Cholette.
Lisanne.
I purchased I guess a supplementary or supplemental dwelling off a farm that was severed. So basically I have a 1.4 acre property on Highway 26 where there's a house and some accessory buildings. Currently zoned agricultural. I know we're not talking about EP, but proposed to be EP. And I have my law practice at my home. And I'm trying to understand the proposed comments here. And I'm reading that it says that it's great that we can have the home businesses in an accessory building. But it says here that a home business in an agricultural or rural zone is considered a OFDU, which we were just talking about, if it is in an accessory building. Am I reading that right? Yeah. So, and a professional practice is not one that's there as of right. So if I wanted to have my law practice in an accessory building on my property, I would not be allowed to do that. In the currently agricultural zoning and in the proposed EP zoning, the way I was reading the proposed bylaw, there was no home business whatsoever allowed in accessory building. It was simply in the dwelling. And I don't understand the rationale behind that.
Okay, so first thing about EP, write your comments down and submit them to the township so that comment about EP, about having a use that you'd like to have in an EP land on your specific property, get that in right away, because that will be part of that EP discussion that the staff are going to be working on. And so back to the other issue, and that is that Colin, I don't understand the confusion here. That, I mean, if there's a building, you're saying in the new bylaw, the building, if there is a building and the owner wishes to operate their small business out of it, they would have the ability to do so. You were nodding your head on that. Is that right? So that, because this is an as of right situation, right?
My understanding is I could not operate under the new provision of the zoning bylaw. If I was zoned agricultural or rural, I could not operate my professional office in the accessory building.
If you have a severed lot off of an agricultural property, then your zoning is probably incorrect right now. It should be rural residential.
Well, currently it's agricultural.
Yeah.
But even if it was rural, the proposed bylaw says you cannot have a home business. A home business in an agricultural or rural zone is considered an OFDU.
Yeah.
And it's
But
not.
a severed lot is not an agricultural use. A severed lot is not an agricultural property,
Agreed.
right? Anyway, Dave's wanted to say something here while we were all contemplating this. Dave, go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'm going to turn it over to Leah. We just worked through it. I think the response is positive. So I'll let her respond.
Through your worship. So there's two things going on. So if you have an agricultural or rural lot, a home business is permitted as of right. However, if that home business is taking place in an separate building from the main dwelling, so in an accessory structure, it's still permitted. It's only permitted through the provisions of the on-farm diversified use. So you're still held to the 2% cap, and that you have to be in the farm building cluster. All those regulations for on-farm diversified use would apply to you. You could still have your home business there. You're just held to those requirements. Also, if it's existing, you'd be covered by the legal non-conforming policies in the zoning bylaw. So you could keep practicing there, and you'd only be subject to the new provisions if you wanted to build an addition or make major changes to your practice.
So even though it's not one of the as of right uses on the on-farm diversified use, I didn't see professional office there.
So the definition of on-farm diversified use references the home business as a defined term. So you would refer to the home business definition, and that's where professional office is referenced as a permitted use. So it's a little roundabout. You have to follow all the defined terms, and they are italicized for reference.
That's great. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you.
We're all learning here. This is good. Appreciate that. Okay. Other comments? Is there other comments on home businesses? Yes. Come right up again, sir.
Steve Main, this one's on behalf of my wife, Maria Basic, who couldn't be here tonight. Same question, because Clearview has a lot of art and art studios, and my wife currently has an art studio in an accessory building, so that answers that question. Looking at the specific, I understand enforcement is probably the reason you set it at 4 square meters, or 4 cubic meters for storage.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you either.
Sorry, right now, the 4 cubic meters is about the size of a large fridge or a standard closet in a house. I can see for certain businesses, such as an accountant, a lawyer, maybe that would work. But in the case of art, there's large scale. So it seems to be at odds with the 40 square meter floor plan type concept, which might be more reasonable. And I don't need an answer today, but just was wondering in the background, I couldn't find any evidence of a similar restriction except Owen Sound in any written public record. So it just seems to be odd.
Through your worship,
Yep.
sorry, that's only outdoor storage. So it's just I know it says right there that it says storage. I think that was just a typo on the slide. It's only outdoor. So if it's indoor, that wouldn't apply.
Okay, so without Colin's comparisons were very good, by the way. I would like to compliment him on that and his Instagram videos. My original reading and my original feedback was actually, so I must have missed that. So it is very clearly outdoor storage then. So this is like small garden shed territory. Okay. All right, thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Appreciate that. Are there any other questions for home business category? Home business. Another one?
You stepped away.
That's
I
okay.
did step away.
It's okay.
Hi, Steve Main. This one's for me. On the 3 people, that is also something I've provided verbal feedback on, if not written feedback on in the official record. But again, I understand it's about the nature of a neighborhood, but given the nature, the broad nature, it is very difficult. What are you supposed to do as that small business owner if you do have to either have a group of 5 people show up on an incidental basis, a group of 8 people show up on a bi-weekly basis, or similar things like that? It's quite restrictive. I think I understand the original intent, but the basis of it, could the working team either inform the broader group on what is behind that? I'm interested in a little bit of insight.
Derek or Dave? Dave, go ahead.
Through your worship, I think it's a fair comment. We have the comments. But what the intent is really looking at scale. And if there's 3 people, when you think of things like parking, sometimes then there's parking available in the driveway. There could be on-street parking. If there's 5 to 8 people, probably not many driveways accommodating that many vehicles, and then you're having vehicles parking on the street. So it really is trying to find the balance of scale. And if someone is looking to have a home business that needs more than that on a more regular basis, and just talking with Derek, that could be something. We have a bylaw, we have committee of adjustment and variances. And that could be a consideration with the right justification on parking and servicing and scale and neighborhood context as well. So we're trying to set a base, but variances and other things could be considered if in other instances.
All right.
Thank you for the
Thank you.
feedback.
Just my comment, I would prefer we don't have to keep going to committee of adjustment. I think we should have this bylaw set up so that we have abilities to have the flexibility within it to permit the resident to, or the property owner to move forward. Committee of adjustment is very important when there's side yard setbacks or things like that, are adjusted a little bit, but to have a interpretation about the number of people attending, I don't know, but to me, it should be something that we'd look at as an at-right. Yes, Elias wants something to say.
Through your worship, sorry, I need to correct myself. I double checked the bylaw and my memory did not serve correct. You were right, the 4 meters squared is within a building. I believe we pulled that out of the official plan, but we will keep that down as a note because that does seem strange. I don't believe the intent was to limit somebody like a painter. It was more so if somebody was doing a more intensive home business, but we'll take another look at that item.
Much appreciated. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Again, on home business, anybody else? Okay, I think we'll move on. There's a few minutes before the first pitch, Marty. All right, yeah, I can see that. You're looking good there, Donaldson. This is a good one. Use of shipping containers. Now, I want to preface this just before you speak, Dave. Shipping containers is a bylaw that we passed 2 terms ago, and I must compliment our bylaw department on being as lenient as they possibly can. But the objective of the original bylaw was set so that shipping containers would not be in residential areas. And yet it seems to be expanded right across the entire township. So I'm interested in what you guys have come up with to help us with the zoning bylaw on shipping containers.
Shipping containers is a hot topic.
It's one of the hot topics. There's no doubt.
Not just here, but in other places, because they're used for many different things. And when we talk about shipping containers, we're talking just purely of the unmodified shipping containers, because there are modified and converted and all kinds of different things. But at this point, we're proposing to continue to prohibit them in any zone. And other than moving containers, which are a little bit different than shipping containers. You see the moving containers are sometimes on blocks and the big truck picks them up. But at this point, the bylaw is recommending to prohibit them in all zones.
Okay, so can I get your phone number? And I'm gonna make sure everybody who calls me calls you.
Uh, Your worship, I have dealt with shipping containers many
I'm sure you
times,
have.
from OLT to provincial court to Supreme Court.
Fair enough.
And they're a tricky matter.
They are a tricky matter.
To regulate and define.
For sure. This goes back a while, so Councillor Walker and myself were on this council when we passed this resolution. But one of the compelling stories that came forward was a case in British Columbia, just so everybody knows this. Apparently, a shipping container was open. A gentleman had it on his property. It was a windy day. The door closed, the door latched, and there was no way out of the shipping container. And sadly, his family discovered him some 2 weeks later. So the issue about shipping containers are they're not buildings. They're simply not a building. They are a shipping container. And so a building always has some type of man door or access, ventilation, lighting, whatever. But a shipping container has none of those things because they're absolutely designed to be waterproof, sometimes even airtight. And so shipping containers are a very difficult issue when you talk about the steel shipping container. A lot different than some of the truck bodies, because a lot of truck bodies are designed to have air movement in them and so on. But certainly the shipping container one was a big debate, and I recall the discussion that this council had. It's an interesting one. I'm interested to hear what the public have to say about this. Paul wants to speak, but does anybody have any comments about shipping containers? Come forward.
Yeah, hi, John Hill here.
John, hi, John.
Hi. More question. There are many shipping containers currently on sites. Does this apply to?
Is your microphone on there? Is it green?
Yes, sorry.
Okay, sorry. Thank you.
I'm wondering how this applies to shipping containers that already exist on sites, like, say, the few behind Clearview's storage yard
Right.
down in Creemore. There are many other places that have them. Is this only for new, or does it apply to those which have been on a site for some time?
Well, the bylaw is in place on shipping containers, and so it's in place right now. They're proposing to continue it.
Right, but if someone already has one on site, does that mean that then it must be removed?
Well, there's no grandfathering on shipping containers. That's the big problem with them.
That's interesting.
Yeah, I know. And so as Dave's smiling, I'm smiling, we all know there's problems with shipping containers.
Yeah.
So do we want them or not? I mean, maybe
Okay.
we should put it on the ballot for the next election and ask the public.
Yeah.
Imagine that.
One other comment, my son stayed at a very lovely, I'll call it a glamping
Yeah.
place in Manitoulin Island. They were made from shipping containers. They were modified. It was very high end and they were very cool. So I don't know if there's a way to accommodate special
Yeah.
situations.
So John, they have to fit underneath the building code, first of all, and a shipping container is not a building. It doesn't fit in the building code. But if you modify it, as Dave was saying,
Yeah.
you make modifications, you put man doors in it, you put windows, you put
Right.
air ventilation, you put insulation. The other secret is you must attach it to the ground. The shipping containers, while they're very heavy, they can get blown over.
Okay.
It can happen. Like, we get some pretty good winds once in a while. So they have to be attached to the ground somehow. Like, they have to be affixed to foundation or something that holds them down.
Right.
So there, and I'm familiar with the ones in Manitoulin because I stayed in a teepee this past year out on Manitoulin, and I saw those. So
Okay.
that's all. I appreciate what you're saying, Dave or Derek. You got any quick comments you want to say about shipping containers? I mean, I don't mean to dominate this myself because I have a real strong opinion about it. But anyway, carry on.
To your worship, shipping containers, like I say, they're very tricky. the building code interpretation of shipping container and building and structure is tricky itself as far as implementing and applying that to shipping containers. So um, different municipalities have done different things. That's why we have it on here to see some public feedback and to gauge a bit of what the public response is in the use of shipping containers, because there was the previous bylaw and direction, and I think it's going to be something that overall throughout the province municipalities will face as a challenge in dealing with shipping containers.
All right, thank you. Paul, you had something you want to add?
Thank you. You mentioned, and you sort of, I won't say open up a can of worms. A shipping container in its true form is dangerous. A shipping container that is modified may or may not be. And I would sort of push towards, right now, we don't need a building permit for any garden shed that's up to, I believe, 150 or 160 square feet. So an 8 by 20 shipping container basically is the size of a permitted garden shed. However, nobody wants to see, if you're in a high density area, wants to see a steel container that says Costco printed all over, or whatever the company that was. Could we consider, or should there be a taste to consider a shipping container that has been modified, i.e. put a proper man door, put proper ventilation in, put a proper coat of paint, or clean it up so that there's no reflection of it? Would that accommodate a lot of people, especially in the rural areas? They're very, I can't speak to a town, because in town it's another story, but in a rural area where a person has acreage, I think there's something we should consider in terms of a modified shipping container.
Through your worship to the counselor, what we can do is, if that this is kind of the feedback, do a bit of a best practice review, because I can tell you, in working in other municipalities, they have things converted shipping containers, which is what I believe you're referencing, and would allow those. And in some municipalities, they allow shipping containers in different zones, not residential zones, but in other zones. So perhaps what we can do as part of our report is look at some best practices or practices in other municipalities and share those with you to get some further feedback and direction.
I think that would be good, because I watched a documentary last year about shipping containers. I believe it was Scarborough or Oshawa that have turned them into dwelling units for homeless people. I came from Ottawa last weekend, and I see a fire department that's using them for training purposes. We have uses for them. And so I think we have opportunity right now to look exactly what you're saying and seeing what we can do to make them work. Thank you.
I concur with the deputy mayor here. Some shipping containers can look neater than some people's garages do for storage. As long as there's a man door, a second way of egress, there should be no reason why we shouldn't be able to have them, in my estimation. The town of the Blue Mountains has quite a lengthy bylaw on them as well. So I've looked it over quite a few times when we discussed this the last time too. So I'd be in favor of looking at something like that. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Anybody else on shipping containers? Yes, please come right up.
My name's Matt Plain, and I just wanted to say that seeing the containers all over the township to me, is a vote that people want them, and, they're used, and maybe there is some safety issues with them, but it doesn't seem like it's a widespread safety issue, so some consideration should be given to allowing them. And the alternative for me, I run an auto repair shop, and the alternative is I store things outside, or I store them in transport trailers. The shipping containers are the nicest option because they're secure, they're easy. I thought they were recognized as a building, because that was a couple of years ago when Clearview was talking about them. They were going to regulate them through building permits, but that stopped when the building code changed to allow them because they were under 161 square feet. I don't know if that's a question, but I just wanted to say that I would like to see them, the report said that staff wants to see direction from council, so I would like to see council direct staff to investigate it and propose some solutions, or like just banning them outright seems too restrictive when they're all over the township, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
Matt, you're reading the tea leaves. You're right. That comment about that staff's looking for direction from council. And I'm quite confident this council will have a very good debate about that very issue coming up when we get to the point of receiving this report. The point was that I was trying to make is that they are not recognized as buildings. So while the square footage says that they are, the use of a shipping container, which is meant as a mobile device, is not recognized as a building. So it does have a temporary use. But if you put it on your property and it's there longer than 3 months and you don't have a building permit for building something at your property, then you're technically breaking the zoning bylaw and the bylaw. So as I preface my comments, I'm very grateful that our bylaw enforcement team have been lenient to the point that they could spend all of their time dealing with this and cause all kinds of grief across our township. But they have cleaned up. Some of them, as the deputy mayor said, has been rather messy looking, which is the premise as to why we didn't want them in residential areas. So we have a clean and clear bylaw that talks about derelict vehicles and junk around your house, that kind of stuff. So we've been doing some cleanups. We've got some derelict homes that have been removed across the township because they've just not been occupied for lengthy time. So this all kind of falls into that category to lift the entire community's, value by having, neat properties. So I absolutely see the value of them, particularly in the agricultural world. I talked to a farmer, not this farmer, but I talked to another farmer about how when they receive fertilizers, they have to keep it dry. And that's a perfect structure to do that. You put that door sealed, kind of rodent proof. You can, really make them a very well sealed building. And you can put all that fertilizer that they're going to spread in the next 2 weeks on their land. You can put it in there and keep it dry, and it's perfect. The day you pull it out, it's exactly as it went in. So I get it. That's an important use, right? We want to support agriculture. And I get what you're saying too. In your business, you would want to store materials, whether it be parts or whatever, or customers' properties, these type of things. I get it. So I'm hopeful that this council, when we receive this bylaw, will have that full discussion. But I encourage people, both here in this room as well as in the public, to send in their comments about it, because I think that there's a lot we can do to permit them, as Councillor Deneen says, if they're set up in such a way that they are considered safe, and they're set up in such a way that they're considered neat, then you could use them. So that's what I'd like to see us get to. Does that help?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Nothing further on shipping containers? Anybody else? We're going to ship that one off. Okay. Let's go. We're going to move to residential lot fabric. Dave?
Great. So one of the big changes in the bylaw, I would say, is how we've taken a look at the residential zones and looked to kind of consolidate a number of residential zones into fewer residential zones, but with greater flexibility to accommodate changing market demands and what we're seeing being proposed within the township, and to strike a balance between what's a potential opportunity in urban areas, and how the zoning and future development can be put into place with as of right permissions that would also balance existing neighborhoods within those areas. So the report kind of works through a number of examples. In general, the residential fabric, if we go to the next slide, gives you an idea of a comparison of the RS2 zone, so a single detached zone where it's now making provision for different housing forms within the zone. We're looking to avoid zones that just allow single detached dwellings. That's one of the big moves, if you will, with the bylaw to provide flexibility in the zones. And you can see the different size of lot areas that are permitted within the zones. So the RS2 has a lot area, a lot frontage, minimum requirements. You can see the differences. If you go to the next, there's the side yard and the setbacks. And again, looking at providing some additional flexibility for more efficient use of the land. Interior side yard and exterior yard setbacks are being minimized. The one area in which we're continuing to maintain would be a front yard and rear yard setback. So looking to maintain the streetscape of along the homes and then maintain a usable rear yard with the 6 meter setback. And then the lot coverage has also increased. So on any lot, the ability for a footprint of a home has increased as the side yards have decreased and the lot coverage has increased. So it's providing some ability for larger homes on those lots. The other, as we move from the residential lot fabric of the single detached zones, we've been looking at the cluster residential zones as well. But even if you shift then to the RS3 zone, you can see again where there's provisions for minimum lot areas, minimum frontages, and changes associated with the interior yard and side yard setbacks and application of coverages. So that's kind of the residential component. Again, the Collins report really works through a lot of the details. But generally what the bylaw is looking to achieve is a more simplified approach to the zoning types for residential and some greater flexibility within the zones that are identified for residential.
All right, thank you very much. I just asked the deputy mayor while you were speaking, said the 18.6 meters for the minimum frontage. And I got thinking, is there anybody with a lot that has less than 26 feet? Like 26 feet? You have a smaller lot than less than 26 feet? Wow, okay. But I'm thinking in Clearview, I can't think of anybody with a 26-foot lot because that's pretty small. Paul, go ahead.
Yes. I think we all recognize that intensification is the way to go as far as the provincial policy statement is concerned. But my big thing is, where do they park the F-150s? And,
Yeah, exactly.
you know, we laugh about it, but everybody in this community comes north of Highway 9 and we like our boats, we like our snowmobiles, we like our pickups, we like everything. But anyways, in the definition, I know I read in it that they're maintaining parking minimums for residential uses and reduced parking minimums for commercial uses. That's a recommended provision. So something has to give. If we're going to make these lots smaller, how is the parking going to be accommodated? Because I believe the minimum is still 2 parking spots for a residential unit. So how are we going to do it?
Through your worship to the council and me, I may look to township staff for help here, but as far as the bylaw, what we're maintaining is the driveway requirement. So the setback to the house and the driveway at 6 meters, and then the garage. So that would be your 2 parking spaces.
6 meters, so we're 18 feet. I believe my pickup truck's longer than 18 feet. And I think there are a few people in the room would agree with me. So I question then, if we're going to make these smaller, that we're going to have to make either the garages bigger or the parking bigger, one or the other, because this is, when people get into snow removal, when people get into, dealing with, we'll say, neighbor issues, whatever, we need space, we need room. And I don't know that this community is ready for that sizing yet. So agree with it from the size of the square footage, but from a parking point of view, I don't think we have enough room.
Dave?
Through your worship, are you meaning for a single detached home or where we get into street townhouses and cluster townhouses? Because that would be a little bit, a cluster townhouse where there's, um, you know, parking and then additional visitor parking requirements. And then through site plan, you're looking at snow storage. That'd be a little bit different than, say, the single detached where you have the driveway. You still have your minimum yard setback, your front yard for your snow storage, and then your garage. So we're not proposing to increase the length of a driveway parking space in the bylaw. We're proposing to maintain that, which is the 6 meters.
Which is based on, frankly, Honda Civics. You know, a 6 meter parking spot, perfect. You can put a couple of Honda Civics in there. That's fine. That's what they would do in Brampton. That's what they would do in Markham. But, you know, we're not doing that here in Clearview Township. The idea is that I've fought with many developers about this very point, that as Paul mentioned, is that someone comes up here to buy a house, good for them. And they come up to this community, and what do? The first thing they do is they realize that they got to have snow tires and they got to get a truck or a SUV, because you can't really survive in the winter up here in a really small car unless you've got a lot of support. So the issue is that you need more space, and then you move here and you want to have all of the amenities that Paul also mentioned, like having a camper trailer or a fishing boat or a snowmobile trailer or so on. So you need to have place to put those things, right? And if you buy a single dwelling, right, 26 foot wide, where are you putting all this stuff? You know, so there's this is a big one to me, this whole issue, because I've seen it. I've seen some developers build some enormous homes in our town because the current bylaw allows them on very small lots, and you have no backyard, you have no side yard. So it's pretty difficult. So I'm hoping that somewhere down the road we can get to this logical step of what Clearview Township is supposed to look like, and how when somebody moves up here that they become part of this community, and they will obviously want to have some of those great amenities that become part of living in rural Ontario. So, you know, as much as it's wonderful to say we want to stay the same as all of Ontario, it doesn't make sense here. It doesn't, because you know, we have a lot of people that move here, and back to my issue about phone calls. Early in the spring, all of us on council get calls from people complaining about somebody's got a camper blocking a sidewalk. Like, it drives us crazy. You know, what are we to do? Like, Dave, what are you thinking?
So, your worship, the campers and the parking of those things, they're dealt with in the bylaw
Sure they are.
differently. But appreciate your comment. The bylaw, when we're looking at single detached, the minimum width that we've set out now, 11 meters, 36 feet, typically is what we see as a minimum for double car garage, double driveway. So that's how we've set up the minimum lot width in the residential zones. But yeah, I mean, we're open to hearing feedback. I quite honestly can't say I've seen many municipalities move with a longer driveway than the 6 meters, uh, unless through plans of subdivision, uh, s- there's minimal ability to accommodate on-street parking. I have seen it in that scenario where the request has been made for longer driveways to ensure that there's additional parking where on-street parking can't be met. And I just share that because I don't
appreciate
want to suggest that it's never happened, because it has. But where we're seeing and working, mostly it's a 6 meter long driveway, and in some places it's 5.8 and 5.5, and that's not just in urban areas, but most, if I'm just thinking of Brant County, like Paris, 6 meters, um, and Port Elgin, 6 meters. So 6 meters kind of across the board generally, but again, we're always open to hearing feedback on this to provide additional information for consideration.
I got lots of feedback. Is there anybody here who would like to speak to these issues? Please come forward.
This is again more of a comment to the categories of consideration. And I'm wondering if something could be considered about orientation of lots such that one doesn't end up with rear yards facing public rights of way. Like Brampton, say you go miles and miles and all you are looking at is backyard fences. I mean, the nature of the villages that we have here is buildings face the street, or, you know, the side of a house faces a street. But the tendency in development these days is to create a cluster, small zone, which is not addressing the existing public realm. And I think something should be in here to maintain the character of the villages here, and that would be a way to do it. So.
Good comment. I think, again, many municipalities and a lot of the work that we do, when you're looking at subdivision plans, there's design elements associated with subdivision plans or site plans. And I know here, just in the work that I've been doing, staff are very focused on making sure that the public realm is positive and trying to avoid those rear lot fences and try and have a positive streetscape. So the zoning can be part of the tool, but it will come out if your plans of subdivision and review of design and site plan design. And I think there may even be some design policies in the official plan that give direction as well. So that's a bit of a combination of many things for good design.
All right. Yes, Al, come right up. You want to go again?
I'm Alan Riddle. The comment I'd have, like, you want affordable housing, you want to try to get the smaller lot sizes more affordable. I understand all that. Problem is, in Stainer, in Creemore, you don't have the infrastructure in place to handle it. So if you start putting in high density and the subdivisions aren't paying for the existing town to upgrade and put in sidewalks. And I mean, I have lots of parking on my driveway right now because my driveway goes all the way to the road and there is no sidewalks. So I've got a lot of boulevard that my driveway is on, but if the town were to put a sidewalk in, I'd lose that parking. And I don't mind losing it because I want the sidewalks, but you need to put the infrastructure in at the same time. And, you know, to put in a zoning to allow a higher density without having your existing infrastructure to handle that density, you're just going to create headaches for yourselves, more so than you already have. Yeah.
Thank you, Al. To complement what Dave was saying and also this comment too, I've always believed that the development community are building our community, not their community. That's why I've always looked at it. Whenever I meet with developers, I always tell them you're building our community. And second, that you must complement our community, meaning I don't want like them to build something that doesn't suit this community. It doesn't fit into the culture and structure and social, circles of our community. So we need to make sure that it built in such a fashion so that it complements all the other properties that we have. And one of the points that comes to my mind is that when someone builds, these developers have built these massive homes on these small lots, these big homes, while they're wonderful and they look great on HGTV when, people go to look at it and they think, oh, this is what I want, this little feature. But then when they move up here, they can't use their land for anything. So they don't actually integrate, become part of the community. They don't even have a backyard to have a backyard, little campfire, which you can do in our township. You also don't have enough space to have a chicken coop, which you can do in our township. We've had people actually complain to us about chickens. We have a chicken bylaw. This is an agricultural community. Sorry. Chickens are allowed in our township. So, that's the frustration that I have when it comes to the way the whole zoning thing is, because the development community have been able to leverage these maximum homes on minimum properties by saying, oh, your bylaw says, it's like, let's fix our bylaw so that it actually represents what our community is and what our community wants to be. Now, affordable housing, I would suggest that we take a lot that's some 35 or 45 feet wide, but you build a small home, a reasonably sized house, and then you build a separated garage to have the garage that's a separate building that then could be used for other purposes. You could use it for, your artist studio, or you could use it for your lawyer's office, these type of things. But then you end up having access to the backyard because you build that building back. So there's a couple locations here in Stayner that are perfect structures, perfect homes that were designed with that sort of mentality in place. Mr. Walker, you might remember the Wood family, the boys, the John Wood and his family and brothers built some fantastic properties in this town that have exactly that. Nice little 3-bedroom home with a basement, it's got a nice deck out the back, and then it's got a longer driveway with a garage at the back. They've actually got room for a pool. I mean, it's a beautiful property. And yet it's on a 45-foot lot by about 115 maybe. Perfect. And yet developers don't want to build those today because, like I said, HGTV makes it look great, doesn't it? Got to have all these features. It's like people don't want that when they move up here, when they finally get here and they say, where do I park my snowmobile? That's what they're looking for. Where do I repair my snowmobile? Anyway, I'm going off on a tangent. So I want you to know that this is where I see this whole lot fabric discussion going, because it's very frustrating dealing with the development community who use our own bylaw against the wishes of our community. So I would really hope that we get to the point that the bylaw is representative of this community. So, do you want one more, Sonia? I want to get us going here, but go ahead.
I'm sorry. One small further suggestion, possibly with the narrow lots, is that consideration be given to shared driveways, which is something that
Yeah,
has worked in order to increase density.
yeah. Shared driveways is something I think it's a possibility. We have to make sure that both properties are built at the same time, and yeah. Okay, it's getting late. If there's nothing, yes. Did you want to speak? Yes, please come forward. Hi, nice to see you.
To see you, Celeste Phillips. I have a date with Beau Bichette now, so I have to go.
Okay.
But my quick question is to Dave and Aaliyah. Thank you for your presentation. I saw a reference to, you made reference to 11 meters as being your smallest lot, but I did see a reference on one of the slides to 9-meter lots being permitted. Without getting the mayor angry, I just want to understand where they will be permitted. Thank you.
Let's see, they'd be permitted, 9-meter lot.
Through
Yes, go
Mayor,
ahead, Dave.
it is in one of the zones. I'm trying to find it, but currently the bylaw proposes it. Perfect. Someone found it before me. Thank you.
It's right here in front of us. There you go.
Yeah.
Good. Well done. The clerk did that.
Thank you.
Okay,
We're like the Blue Jays, teamwork.
that's it. Okay. All right, parking requirements. Now batting, Dav Ashton.
Parking requirements. What we looked at is essentially maintaining the parking minimums for residential uses, reducing some of the parking minimums for commercial uses. Some of them were quite high relative to other areas that we reviewed. And in some of the cases, we also looked at clarifying how we calculate the number of parking space requirements to use more of a square footage approach than, for example, in schools, number of classrooms and such. It becomes a little complicated, or number of tables in a restaurant. So that's what we're proposing for the parking requirements. And after this one, we'll give a update on the Jays game, just in case everybody wants to know.
That's okay. We've already got that.
Oh, you have it on.
My wife's sending me messages. I think Marty's got it on the.
2-0.
Never.
home runs to start.
2-0 for the Jays. So there you go. 2 home runs.
I'm getting
Yeah, no, we're all getting excited.
I'm not, I'm focused here on
That's
the
okay.
zoning bylaw.
All right. Okay, anybody got any comments on the parking requirements? Nobody wants to say anything? I would have a point to make in regards to restaurant parking requirements. There are some restaurants in our community that have used and are continuing to use our easements, our road easements. They're using them as their parking, and that's fine. It's in their site plan to do so. Sometimes there's a little confusion about the types and size of vehicles that are allowed to park in these type of parking spots that are quite narrow. Back to the length of vehicles. Certainly in Ottawa, we have the beautiful Door Knock restaurant. Has the owner on his own right put up these signs that say small vehicle parking only, because guys with 350s with big trailer hitches sticking on there just pull right up to the restaurant, and they're literally sticking right out into the lane. So, that he did that on his own, the previous owner, and so we're thankful for him to do that. But I think he's being respectful of how to use the public easement space and to try to meet the site plan approvals that he has as this building. So, parking is a concern for sure for all kinds of businesses in our community. Nothing else, members? Dave, or go ahead, Paul.
Dave, when I heard you say about switching from a school, I use the example of the elementary school, from 1.25 spaces per classroom to one space per 75 meters squared. What's the logic in that?
So we've moved to more just of a square footage approach overall versus just the classroom. Personally, just think it's easier to deal with at a site plan stage, or for a designer to design to, versus, each school block counting each classroom. That's really why we went to that. We believe it simplifies the application of the parking requirement.
And see, I would question, I saw you use the example of a worship area. Same thing, if you do it on seats or you put it on square footage, it almost diminishes the parking. And I won't say we have as much challenges these days as we did years ago, but like I say, for a school, high school is a whole different story, because how many 16-year-olds, or let's call them 17, are driving to school nowadays? A lot more than probably when you and I went to school. And I think there's some challenges in restricting the parking spaces. Like, to me, if 1.25 for an elementary school was pretty logical, because it allowed for, your staffing, or your secretaries, or whatever. I question some of them. Other ones make sense, but some of them, I really question whether we're restricting the square footage, or we're restricting the parking spaces at the expense of making it easier.
Through the mayor, one of the things we can do is quite easily we'll kind of do the math on a recent school and say, here's what it would look like on 1 per 75, and here's what it would look on the old one. We'll test it. I think it's a fair comment. We'll test it out and make sure it works.
Yeah, see, the other thing, and I didn't touch base, but what we're seeing with our commercial developments right now, we've approved the development for the new Foodland, McDonald's, LCBO. But there's provisions for more buildings to go up there. If more buildings go up there, that parking lot is going to be really challenged, depending on what's put to the council as far as what's going to be needed to support it. We put a restaurant in, a sit-down restaurant, there's a lot of more parking spots are going to be needed. So I just tread lightly on downsizing. We've had one request already, potentially coming forward, where they want to reduce the number of allocated parking spots by about 25 to 30%. That, according to provincial standards, we're going to have a hard sell trying to tell them that, no, we need those parking spots. So, thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else with comments about parking? Parking. All right. Thank you very much, everyone. Dave? archaic plans.
Well, I'm sorry to say, we just thought it might be getting easier, and I throw this literally curveball to make things a little
It's a
bit,
curveball, all right.
more challenging at you.
Well, I can tell you this, this township has adopted all of the archaic plans that came from Nottawasaga, Sunnydale. It's, there's a lot of them, you know.
Yeah.
Nottawasaga had a lot of them, so.
And again, like shipping containers, it's very tricky because there's so many different components to the state of the archaic plan. Um, so we've looked at a few different options. One is really do nothing, deal with kind of the bylaw and permitting and all of that through typical process. The other is to look at them as a future development zone or apply a holding symbol, which would then require certain criteria to be met for them to be developed. A lot of these, probably if I were to name the three main issues when you're thinking of archaic plans, it's road frontage and access, water, and septic. So if there are certain criteria that relates to satisfying those requirements for consideration, um, and then an application to establish a buildable lot may be applied for in some specific cases. So they're tricky. There's a number of them on the go. I know I'm looking across, I can't see her, but Rosalind, there she is. We've talked about these for quite some time, and how we deal with them with regard to them being a lot of record or not a lot of record. So this one is really if there's input or feedback, uh, there's a few different approaches we can take on archaic plans and looking for some input.
All right, is there anybody here that owns one of those? You know, those type of lots? Anybody? No, okay. Does anybody have any comment about archaic plans? Paul would like to speak, but I'm looking at Roz. Did you have something you want to say?
Thank you, Worship. More just that we have seen recently that we have given some permissions
Yes.
through this building permit application process, which has really helped, I think, clear up some of those lots. But it is a limited application, right? In
Yeah.
that they have to have frontage on a road that is maintained on a year-round basis. So and there are many other lots that, you know, may never get developed in, you know, any short period of time because they're outside of settlement areas mainly, right?
Mainly that's the issue.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And they continue to be challenges. And so just a question to see, you know, is there some other way to help identify what these are, to help really sort of highlight where they're located? Often they do get lost, so maybe putting a different zone on them would make it a little bit easier for people and staff.
Interesting.
Anyway.
Paul, did you want to add something to that?
Well, I sort of wanted to lean on Rosalind for this one because I think we're sort of dependent as a council in your direction because we don't have to deal with it on a day-to-day basis until it blows up. I don't like the word future development because that makes it sound like they'll be able to develop it. I like the idea of hold or you know, something to that extent, but there's properties, you know, we've dealt with one recently this year. There's no
No
go
way.
forward on it right
Not
now.
moving.
So I think it's something that we want to give our staff something to work with. But what's the definition? I think will depend on them to come back and say, we're not going to use the word future development, but we're going to use this word. So Dave, I don't know if there's any other words you can use for it to create something magical or whatever, but for the staff, they should have something.
Yeah, fair point, and I think we'll continue to work on that. We can come up with some other language on how we deal with them and the best approach to move forward. There's a couple of different approaches, but we just thought we'd bring it up tonight if there's any public comments or any public feedback, and we'll come back with something.
Okay. Thank you very much. Any other members? Nope. Okay, let's move on. Requirements for cluster development.
we're
Kind of
getting.
brought up a little earlier tonight, but go ahead.
Yeah, so cluster development, the bylaw doesn't really currently have any provisions associated with it. On the slide is an example of a cluster development, a block within a plan of subdivision. So we're identifying some provisions for those, and the next slide gives some idea of them. And some of the provisions when you're talking about cluster development is identifying internal amenity areas. So a minimum amenity area per dwelling unit, so that a dwelling unit, so 1 unit times 5, and then however many. So it's going to get you a common amenity within that block for those homes. A minimum 1.5 meter walkway from the street to each entrance of each dwelling unit. So making sure that there's a connection between the units. And any private streets also requiring setbacks per the relevant zone. So back to our discussion a little bit on parking and driveways, making sure that in a cluster development, the requirement for the setback and driveway is respected for each unit. And there's some direction when we look at cluster developments, most of them then move into either a common element, plan a condominium, and parcels of tied land, which a subdivision block and a common element road with part lot control and or standard condominium. So just making some provision that recognizes how we deal with lot lines and setbacks for these types of development when they move to a plan of condominium. So it's something new in the bylaw. This isn't in the current bylaw on how to deal with cluster type development.
What, maybe this would be just a question for Rosalind. What is Clearview Meadows defined as?
Yep, through the mayor. Yeah, I believe it would be considered like a cluster development. It is a land lease, so that's a bit different in that it's like it's a longer type of it's not like ownership, but it's lease land, right? So um I'm trying to think. So the Simcoe Gardens was another little development that was in Stainer, that would kind of be like a cluster development. It was a condominium. Mamton Development's also looking at other types of cluster developments that are, and again, they're more high density. There's more townhouse type units, apartments, stuff like that.
All right, thank you. Any comments from the public or members? Any comments? Cluster development? We all understand what that is? Okay. All right, very little. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to private servicing, particularly in the area of cisterns, which is I know we have a few of them in our township. Dave, I'm sure that the staff have shared that with you.
So this is on the hot topic list because staff had shared with
Good.
us. But if you see the explanation on what we're proposing here is that we're actually thinking that it's not a zoning matter. And that it would be more of a building code or building permit related item to start to put it into zoning. We believe could be complicated and cumbersome as a regulation in a zoning bylaw, and we think that there are other regulatory mechanisms that can deal with it a lot better than trying to draft a zoning bylaw that tries to anticipate every potential scenario.
Of course. Be a real complicated document if it did that. If I can just ask then, your recommendation to move this directly into an engineering / building department provision, would that be based on something that is in a provincial authority? Because water and sewer are underneath provincial regulations as to how they operate. So are you suggesting that this be moved out of zoning so that it can, fall forward and be part of the provincial standards?
To you, Mayor, I think what we're suggesting is that the other provincial standards and other mechanisms can more appropriately deal with it than zoning. For example, if you're looking at a residential, like, can you use a cistern or not use a cistern through a zoning bylaw? I don't know that the zoning bylaw is the right place to say
Yeah.
that you should or shouldn't. It should be other mechanisms on, is it feasible? Is it appropriate under other codes and regulations?
Okay. All right. Well, I'm just looking because it's an engineering thing, whether it would be something that would be fall underneath some type of provincial regulation. Um, the use of cisterns has been going on forever. It just hasn't been really common here. So, okay, that's good. Paul, you want to jump in?
Oh, I love water. The obviously the regulation for water wells is regulated by the Ministry of Environment, and I do believe cisterns are regulated by the Ministry of Health in terms of water quality. So I think a fair comment is we really can't dive into their areas too much. What we basically have to state or swim with is that um, infrastructure is a preferred method of servicing. And we're going to basically stick with that, that if anything is on municipal services, they must hook up to that. And if it's available, they must hook up to it. However, in a rural application or a non-service area, whether a person uses a well or a cistern, I don't think that should be a criteria or become a critical issue in issuing a building permit. Because if you put a cistern in, you buy a load of water every weekend. There's many people in this community, whether it be Thornbury or that literally have no water, have poor quality, so they've put cisterns in, or they've got a low supply, so they put a cistern in to supplement it. So I think it's something we got to step back from a bit, but basically say to a person, prove to us how you're going to get your water, and if it means we're putting a cistern in, that should be sufficient for building purposes. Or you have a bona fide well that has a well certificate. Here you go. That's good enough. So I think that's, I think if that's going that way direction, Dave, it takes the pressure off our staff to be the heavy on where the person's water comes from. Yes, I recognize, I see, we had one today again, a person had no clue where their well was. And they bought a house not that long ago and they didn't know where their well is. So there's regulations to, and to deal with that stuff. So thank you.
Great.
Yep.
So that is, we are now in the conclusion ending. So attend the public meeting. As I mentioned, this was part of the process to obtain public feedback. We have this feedback. We'll kind of collectively as a group take back what we've heard. We've got some action items for a little more work to report back to council and respond to some of the comments and the questions. And so we'll be doing that. We'll get a sense of when we can get back to the public for the public meeting. And so we'll communicate on that through the township's webpage. Maybe Colin can do an Instagram about it, and we can go from there. But please, if you have comments in the presentation or online, it's still open for comments. Please share your comments with us. And just on behalf of the entire team that we've been working with, really appreciate everyone's time coming out tonight, working with us through these hot topics and giving us some feedback. As the mayor mentioned at the start, this is an important document for future planning, future decisions for the township. And we just appreciate hearing from everyone tonight, being asked questions, receiving comments. And we're looking forward to kind of digging into them and bringing an updated report and draft back to you.
All right. We do look forward to your report. I'm sure the public look forward to it as well. And perhaps we'll do a communication to the public in a form of a press release to indicate that the report has now been published and is be considered by council. It generally would be part of our agenda process to put it in the agenda, but we may extend that just to make sure people are fully aware of it so that they have an opportunity to take a look at it again and reach out to their local councilors. Thank you very much, everybody, for participating here tonight. I would suggest, while I know we all want to leave, but I would say that our staff are available if you want to grab them before they leave. If you have any individual questions that are outside of the discussion points that have been brought up already tonight, I'm confident our staff would be happy to answer your question, and they'll probably take bets on the next batter as well. Marty, do you have something you want to add?
Yeah, I'm just wondering when we can get an update about the environmental protection changes. To me, that was the biggest concern most people had. Land that's good right now, that's rural, all of a sudden with the swipe of the pen, it's environmental protection. They want to do something with it. Their land value goes down because they're going to have to get an environmental assessment. And this is what's bugging people most about this change. And we're talking about everything except it. So I think a lot of people want to know, when do we get an update on the changes to the environmental protected areas?
Dave, good question. Thank you, Marty.
So environmental protection, as it kind of started off, we have been working through mapping, GIS mapping, overlays, Conservation Authority mapping, working with the county. We're trying to work with them to get some of their new mapping information from them to build into the EP zoning. When can we release something? I'm going to say that it's going to depend on the county and how we work at releasing it. Their mapping is likely not until the new year, from what I understand, is coming. Now, we have a lot of information that may inform where we're currently at, and may be able to look at how we phase um, the environmental protection mapping. We're I would be hopeful at this point that we've done a lot of work. We could we could provide an update certainly near the end of November. I don't know that that's going to have the final mapping. I'm just hesitating because we also don't want to put mapping out there that doesn't address the concerns or the comments. So, Your Worship, that's my hesitation, but certainly we'll commit to provide an update to council, to the public in November in some kind of a report. And if we have some areas where we have clarified, we'll do our best to do that. I know some of them, they're in speaking to some people, was, the lines over top the middle of my house, how can I address that? Some of those may be easy to address. It's the larger scale ones where we're relying on mapping and input from external agencies that we need some clarification on. So I hope that helps. We'll get something in November. I don't know if it's going to have mapping because I don't think we want to put something out there that just creates more confusion.
Okay, I'm not going to delay it any further, but I want to ask, are you using the provincial LiDAR mapping tools to check the mapping through LiDAR rather than just the aerial photography to check for growth? The provincial LiDAR mapping, the province or the county of Simcoe uses it to determine any water courses or swales or things like that.
So our understanding, just checking with Aaliyah and the discussion with the county, is the county's mapping that they're working on, the updated mapping, is using the LiDAR information. And that's kind of what we're waiting for.
Yeah.
We know the Conservation Authority has used some element of LiDAR mapping as well. So that's so we have some of that information, but the county is certainly using that, which is why we're kind of working with them and hoping we can get something from them sooner than later.
All right, that's glad to hear. Nothing further from members? All right, I want to thank all the public for participating in our workshop. I have two little items of business yet for council. Council, we have a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of our council meeting. Recommendation that bylaw 2559 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the October 29, 2025 council meeting, I should say special council meeting, be presented and read a first, second, and third time, and finally passed on the 29th day of October 2025. Mr. Deputy Mayor, Madam Deneen, any questions? All in favor? Bylaw carries. Motion to adjourn, moved by Councillor Beelan, seconded by Councillor Deneen, and is 8:39. All in favor? Thank you. Go Jays. Thank you, everybody.